Chapter 24:11. His wife also went to the city to look for their son, but sigh. The villagers sighed regretfully. Elder T is too stubborn, staying in the Boo family village. Not only is his life in danger, he is also living and waiting every day. Why not go directly to the city? Chinua City is not far from here. Actually, it's better to go and see how his wife and son are doing in the city. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly when she heard those words. She got up and looked at those villagers. "Grandpas, you said Elder T's son is in Chinua City?" The villagers were stunned. They looked at Yiqing Luo in panic. "You, how did you hear us?" They were whispering to each other, and their voices were clearly very soft. If it were ordinary people, those they were discussing, ordinary people indeed couldn't hear them clearly. But Yiqing Luo and Gu Jingyu were cultivators, and their cultivation was rather high. The villagers' words were naturally heard clearly. "We came from Chinua City." Yiqing Luo didn't answer the villagers' question, but said directly, "If it's possible, we can help Elder T to look for his wife and son." The villagers looked at each other and stared at each other in bewilderment. No one spoke. The old man noticed the commotion over here and waved a huge cattail leaf fan at those villagers. "What are you gossiping about again? Go away. Don't disturb the guests drinking their tea." Those villagers shook their heads helplessly, but still left the tea house. The old man smiled and waved the cattail leaf fan at Yiqing Luo. "Young lady, don't listen to their nonsense. Finish your tea and go to the sacred spring with your husband." Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips tightly. She wasn't a kind person, but she was a person with a heart, losing news of her loved ones. And those robbers, time and time again, harassed the Boo family village, killing the villagers cruelly. But he couldn't leave, afraid that if he left, his loved ones would return and couldn't find him. The old grandpa's heart was actually more uncomfortable than anyone else. But he still had to consider their feelings, smiling benevolently. Elder T was really a very gentle old grandpa, so gentle that it made the usually emotionless her. He couldn't help but feel his heart ache. "Old grandpa, it's going to be the Chinua sect leader's 50th birthday soon. The citizens of Chinua City have to stand on the streets to celebrate the sect leader's birthday. If you're looking for your son and wife, why don't you show us their portraits? We'll go back to Chinua City and help you look for them." Yiqing Luo did not force Elder T to leave with her. However, since he already knew about this matter, if it was convenient for her to help, this matter could not be left unattended. The smile on Elder T's face froze. He seemed to be hesitating. To be more precise, he was afraid. What was there to be afraid of? He was afraid that his wife and son had not returned yet. What if fear is bad news? Or was he afraid that his son and wife would live in the city and not want an old man like him? No matter which one it was. Even old-time T was afraid to find out. He would rather hold on to this hope and silently guard it. Yiqing Luo didn't urge or force Elder T, only waiting for him to make his own choice. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Elder T finally heaved a heavy sigh. "Forget it. There's no use guarding this false hope. I want to know what's their situation now. As long as they're safe, no matter what, I'll be at ease." Saying that, Elder T walked into the small wooden house with heavy footsteps. Chapter 24:12. The old man's gaze stared at the wooden box in his hand, filled with longing and longing. He walked in front of Yiqing Luo, placing the wooden box on the wooden table. That wooden box looked exquisite and extremely clean. She could tell that the old man often flipped through this wooden box. The things in the wooden box. It was also the obsession that supported him till now. The old man's wrinkled hands trembled as he opened the wooden box. In the wooden box, there were a few small things, and there were two paintings. The old man picked up one of the paintings. His fingertips were trembling slightly. Yiqing Luo didn't rush him, nor did she disturb him. After some time, the old man slowly placed the painting on the table. "This is the only painting this old woman has. Before she went to the city to look for her son, a young couple who passed by drew the only painting for her." The old man's voice sounded choked. The yellowed painting slowly opened up. Suddenly, There was a commotion outside the village. Those villagers who were called away by the old man earlier all ran back. Elder T, quickly keep the things. Those people are here again. The old man's hand, which was opening the painting, paused. The expression on his face turned extremely ugly. He abruptly kept the painting into the wooden box. Run, run, run. Why are you running? Haven't you learned to be obedient? A rough voice was heard from afar. A group of people, about 40 to 50 people, majestically walked into the Boo family village. The few men who were walking in front were dressed in strange black clothing, short top, tight long pants, with a black belt embroidered with strange patterns on their waists, directly lifted their feet and kicked those villagers who ran over. These villagers were all ordinary people, and they were all old. After being kicked, they immediately fell onto the ground, screaming in pain, and were unable to move. Those men laughed loudly, all the way to the tea house. Young people, find a chance to run. These people are not good people. Elder T looked at those people, as his face sunk, as he suppressed his voice. These people, were they the ones who robbed the Boo family village of resources and indiscriminately killed innocent people? Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she took in these 40 to 50 people in a panoramic view. These people's clothing was strange, but extremely familiar, if she didn't remember wrongly. His attire was similar to that of the Miao tribe's patriarch that she had seen in the Battle King's mansion. However, the Miao tribe leader's clothes were obviously more luxurious. In other words, these people were from the Miao tribe. Why did the Miao people want to harass the Boo family village? And to use such cruel methods? Who was the person they were looking for? Run? Where do you think you're going? Elder T, under my nose, who do you think you can let escape? The Miao people parted to form a path. A middle-aged man in his 40s walked out. Yiqing Luo could tell from that man's clothing and patterns. This person was among this group of Miao people. His status was the highest. If he didn't guess wrong, this person should be one of the elders of the Miao tribe. Sure enough, in the next moment, Elder T suppressed his anger and said, "Third Elder Miao, you just want to find someone in the Boo family village. This young couple is just passing by the Boo family village. They want to go to the holy spring to pray for a child. Why do you have to be so aggressive?" Third Elder Miao laughed loudly. He walked directly to the tea house and very naturally sat down at the table next to Yiqing Luo. He swept a disdainful glance at Yiqing Luo and Gu Jingyu, and his gaze paused slightly on Gu Jingyu. But very quickly, he arrogantly turned his head around. Asterisk. Chapter 24:13. TSK Tisk. Elder T, you can't even protect yourself, and you still want to protect these two youngsters? Third Elder Miao laughed mockingly. Elder T's face darkened as he gritted his teeth. It's not a matter of protecting them. They're just innocent passers-by. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but laugh out loud. The surrounding attendants all laughed in agreement. For a moment, the originally quiet Boo family village was filled with ear-piercing laughter. The atmosphere of the entire village became extremely strange. Since you're so afraid that this elder will hurt innocent passers-by, then this elder will hurt innocent people even more. Third Elder Miao's eyes were hazy as he laughed coldly. His gaze slowly landed on the expressionless young girl. The young girl was extremely calm as she looked at the 40 or so people without a ripple in her eyes. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but frown. He had come to the Boo family village to look for someone. He wanted to see the useless people of the Boo family village kneel and beg for mercy, only to be toyed with and applauded by him. This passerby wasn't afraid of them at all. Did he really think that they would only target the Boo family village? Wouldn't they hurt the innocent? His gaze turned cold as he laughed coldly and continued, "You bunch of old farts won't hand over the person that this elder wants. Then, this elder will start with these innocent passers-by." Elder T's entire body trembled in anger. Third Elder Miao, don't you Miao people go too far? Our Boo family village doesn't have the person you're looking for. You want to use this excuse to plunder our resources. How dare you hurt these innocent people? Our Boo family village will fight to the death with you. Third Elder Meow looked like he had heard a joke as he looked at the clansmen around him and burst into laughter again. Fight to the death, you bunch of old and weak trash, the Meow people said disdainfully. As he spoke, he kicked the villagers who were unable to move on the ground a few more times. Come, get up and fight to the death with us. A bunch of old farts. There were also a few Meow people who pushed the trembling villagers to the ground. It was obvious that this was the norm in the Boo family village. You are a bunch of animals. Elder T clenched his fists and pressed his palms on the table, trembling. Third Elder Meow looked at Elder T disdainfully with his sinister eyes. His eyes suddenly fell on the delicate wooden box under Elder T's palm. The Meow people beside him had sharp eyes and walked over. Hey, Elder T, what other treasures are you hiding? As he spoke, the Meow Man snatched the wooden box from Elder T's hand. It was so fast that old-time T couldn't react at all. Elder T's expression changed drastically. He immediately rushed forward and snatched it back. Give it back. I can give you anything you want. No one is allowed to touch this thing. Elder T's attitude piqued Third Elder Meow's interest. He spread his hands. The Meow lackey immediately handed the wooden box to Third Elder Meow. The other Meow tribesman easily stopped Elder T. A Meow tribesman pushed hard. Old-time T's body stumbled and fell backward. Behind Elder T was Yi Ching Luo's wooden table. The position where he fell was coincidentally going to hit the corner of the wooden table. To the old man, it would cause a fatal injury. Just as Elder T fell, Yi Ching Luo's body had already stood up quickly and caught hold of Elder T. Chapter 24:14. Elder T had no time to express his gratitude. He had just steadied himself when he dashed towards Third Elder Meow's direction in tears. Bastard. Don't touch it. Bastard. Return the box to me. Old Grandpa. Yi Ching Luo held on to Elder T. Elder T was an ordinary person. If he insisted on charging forward, he would be sending himself to his death. Yi Ching Luo naturally couldn't watch Elder T send himself to his death. Elder T stared at the wooden box in Third Elder Meow's hands as he bellowed furiously. Let me go. I'm going to fight with that bastard. I'm going to fight with him. Yi Ching Luo held on to him tightly. Very quickly, she pulled Elder T behind her back. Elder T wailed as he struggled with all his might, trying to charge towards Third Elder Meow. The more Elder T did so, Third Elder Meow became more and more interested in the contents of the wooden box. He seemed to be intentionally provoking Elder T. Holding onto the wooden box, he shook it roughly from left to right. He sneered in disdain. What's in it? It's just a low-quality wooden box. How can it be so precious? He casually tossed it in his hands. That action agitated Elder T once again. The surrounding villagers had long been harassed by the Meow tribesmen time and time again and were already annoyed beyond endurance. They were afraid of the Meow people's cruelty and brutality. But at this very moment, looking at Elder T's most precious wooden box, which he usually hugged in his arms like a treasure, the wooden box that no one in the village was allowed to touch, being trampled by Third Elder Meow, the rage that surged up in his heart, the so-called fear had long been replaced by it. It was just death anyway, being tortured, robbed, and trampled on by the Meow people. Being hung up and beaten every single day. Compared to death, how is this any better? Fight with this bunch of bastards. Don't let them rob and humiliate us anymore. Even if we die, we must drag this bunch of bastards down with us. The surrounding villagers suddenly burst into a tragic roar of anger. Their faces were filled with an expression of facing death with equanimity. All of them raised their hoes, farming tools, etc., as they charged towards the Meow people. The Meow people totally didn't expect that this bunch of old and weak trash would suddenly go berserk. For a moment, they couldn't react in time. A group of villagers pounced on him and smashed his head. The 41 Meow people, at least a dozen of them, were pressed on the ground by a group of villagers, venting their anger. For such a long time, they were all suppressing their anger. At this moment, all of his anger was burning. They were burning with all their might. Elder T looked at the chaotic scene. He shook off Yi Ching Luo, who refused to let go of him. Young lady, Immediately leave this place with your husband amid the chaos. These people are deranged and will not let any innocent people go." As he was saying that, he pushed Yi Qing Luo towards Gu Jingyu's direction. Yi Qing Luo and Gu Jingyu exchanged glances. At this critical juncture, how could they possibly leave? If they left the Bu family village now, the Miao would definitely slaughter the entire Bu village. Seeing that the two of them were still standing in their original positions, Zhang Xian nodded. Elder T struggled even harder. "Little girl, let go of me. Let's go. Let's go. Don't tell me you really want to die here with us, bunch of old fellows." "Old grandpa, if you believe me, I guarantee that no one in the Bu family village will be missing." Yi Qing Luo used her other hand and gently patted the wrinkled back of Elder T's hand. The young lady's resolute tone, as though it carried boundless energy. Elder T was stunned by Yi Qing Luo's words. Asterisk. Chapter 24:15. Just at this moment, after a short period of chaos, the Miao tribesmen had already regained their senses. Third Elder Miao stood up abruptly, holding the wooden box, as he pointed towards those maddened old villagers. "Quick! Beat them to death. Kill this bunch of idiots who have eaten the hearts of bears and leopards' guts." The other Miao tribesmen who had not been beaten up by the villagers immediately pounced forward. The villagers were, after all, ordinary people. Venting their anger was not able to turn them into Super Saiyan in an instant to explode out their battle potential. But moments later, they were restrained by that bunch of Miao tribesmen. Beat them up viciously." Third Elder Miao pointed at those villagers who had injuries on their faces, but were still stubborn and unyielding. He held the wooden box tightly in his hands. He was so infuriated that his expression was extremely gloomy. That was a handmade wooden box. Under his extreme strength, it gave off a cracking sound. Elder T looked at the scene in front of him, as tears filled his entire old face. He pushed Yi Qing Luo with force. "Young lady, that is the only remembrance left to me by my wife and son. Let me go over. Let me go over." Yi Qing Luo still didn't let go. Her charming eyes slowly swept past those villagers who had been suppressed by the Miao tribesmen till they had no way to resist. The Miao tribesmen heard Third Elder Miao's command. Thinking of the predicament of being beaten up by this bunch of old, weak, and disabled trash, they immediately raised their hands as they directly punched towards those villagers. They used all their strength. These ordinary old villagers totally could not take a few punches from them. The Miao tribesmen also used all their strength, totally wanting to take the lives of those villagers. "Stop!" Suddenly, a chilly voice rang, as ethereal and melodious to the ears. That voice was very soft and gentle, but it brought along an indescribable deterrent force. Immediately, the entire village seemed to have pressed the freeze button. Frozen on the spot, a red figure slowly walked out. Everyone's gazes turned over one by one. He saw a petite figure standing before the third elder of the Miao clan. He was only 2 steps away from Third Elder Miao. The young lady's looks were elegant. Between her brows, there was a trace of absolute chilliness. The blazing red dress swayed, even though there was no wind. It made her look like a fairy from the 9 heavens. His heart could not help but tremble. Third Elder Miao was the first to regain his senses. Frowning, he stared at the young girl in front of him and threatened in a low voice. "Little girl, are you ordering us?" Yi Qing Luo's eyes were calm as she met Third Elder Miao's warning gaze. She narrowed her eyes. "No, I'm warning you." "Warning?" Third Elder Miao repeated his words and laughed maniacally. "Little girl, do you know who we are? Even if you want to show off, you have to look at the occasion." Yi Qing Luo tilted her head, her long and narrow eyes slightly fluttered. The innocence and pureness of the young girl were fully displayed. "Are you people? I thought you were just a bunch of beasts." She paused and covered her mouth. "Tui, tui, tui, I said it wrong, I said it wrong." After being scolded by Yi Qing Luo, the Miao people's faces turned extremely ugly. But he saw Yi Qing Luo covering her mouth in a mischievous and adorable manner, as though she had said something wrong. He couldn't help but burst out laughing. Little girl still knows fear. That means there's nothing wrong with your brain. Saying your beasts is already praising you. Yi Qing Luo added another sentence. Her long and narrow eyes curved, showing her pureness. Third Elder Miao's face instantly turned black. Chapter 24:16. Put it down. Just as Third Elder Miao was about to smash it down, the young lady calmly spat out 2 words. Her calm and indifferent voice. It revealed an unshakable charisma. Even Third Elder Miao, who was used to killing, seemed to have lost all his energy when he heard these 2 words. Third Elder Miao's expression changed slightly as anger surged in his eyes. How could he be frightened by a young lady? Young lady, how dare you put on an act? Third Elder Miao suppressed the fear in his heart as his sinister eyes stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. But the next moment, after meeting Yi Qing Luo's eyes, that pair of eyes, what kind of eyes? That gaze was like a poisonous snake. It coiled around him tightly, making him unable to breathe. Obviously, her pupils were like glass, crystal clear. Obviously, her eyes were long and narrow, with an evil charm. That kind of enchanting charm. The kind of beauty that could topple a city. But it was filled with an austere and cold chill. Just a glance, but made one feel. The feeling of falling into an ice cellar. Third Elder Miao's body froze on the spot. That hand, which was raised up high, suddenly loosened. The wooden box fell from his hand. Yi Qing Luo stretched out her hand and caught that wooden box. But because of Third Elder Miao's anger, the wooden box which he held tightly had long lost its original firmness. The moment the wooden box fell into Yi Qing Luo's hands, it had already broken into pieces. The things in the wooden box all fell onto the ground. Old woman, Elder T pounced forward, using his own body to block the things that fell out of the wooden box. He swiftly picked up the things, as he softly apologized to the things that fell onto the ground, as though he was apologizing to his own wife. Elder T speedily picked up the things. The surrounding, no Miao people dared to step forward to stop him, because Yi Qing Luo was standing beside Elder T. Her entire body was emitting a horrifying pressure. Yi Qing Luo lowered her eyelids, looking at Elder T wrapping those things which were more important than his life into his clothes. The things were all picked up. She slowly bent down as she was about to help Elder T up. Elder T was anxious and agitated to regain these important things. His fingers kept trembling. With Yi Qing Luo's support, Elder T stood up. In his hand, he was still carefully rolling up the scroll that had fallen on the ground. His fingers trembled. The entire scroll was unfurled. The portrait in the scroll reflected into Yi Qing Luo's eyes. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted. Elder T immediately squatted down and held the scroll in his arms as if it was a treasure. Yi Qing Luo held old-time T's wrist tightly. Grandpa, wait. Elder T felt like he was in a dream. Now he was very clear. This young couple, they were all extraordinary people. Perhaps these two would be the salvation of the Bu family village. Let me have a look at the picture scroll. Yi Qing Luo asked gently. Old-time T was stunned. He looked at the scroll in his arms and then looked at Yi Qing Luo. Soon after, he slowly loosened his grip and unfurled the scroll. In the painting, there was an old woman wearing coarse clothes. His smile was extremely kind and gentle. He could tell. This was also a very gentle person. Yi Qing Luo knew the person in the painting. She had just met the person in the painting not long ago. Wasn't it the first day she came to the northern continent, when she had a conflict with Yuan Kuang? The Granny Boo who wholeheartedly wanted to sacrifice herself to save her? She had not expected. Chapter 24:17. Little girl, you know the person in the portrait? Looking at Yi Qing Luo's expression, Elder T's heart suddenly jumped and he asked nervously. Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips. Thinking about what Miao Yi had said about Grandma Chi's grandson, she was silent for a while, then nodded. When I first arrived in Joyful Heart City, Grandma Bu helped me a little, so we could be considered acquaintances. Elder T's eyes widened. His turbid old eyes were gradually covered by a layer of mist. Tears, along his wrinkled face, slid down bit by bit. He grabbed Yi-Ching Luo's arm agitatedly. You saw the old woman. You saw her, didn't you? The old woman. She's still alive, still alive. Her voice was choked with sobs as she said, You saw the old woman. You saw her, didn't you? Looking at Elder T's tearful face, Yi-Ching Luo's heart softened a little. No matter what the reason was, Grandma Bu didn't return to the Bu family village. He didn't see Elder T again. For old-time T, none of this was important. The important thing was Granny Bu was still alive. His wife was still alive. This was the best answer she could give him. After everything is settled, follow us to Qinghua City to meet Grandma Bu. Yi-Ching Luo held Elder T's hand tightly and patted it lightly. She must want to see you very much. Elder T choked with sobs and couldn't speak. He wiped the tears off his face and nodded. Yi-Ching Luo and Elder T had no one in their eyes as they chatted idly. The surrounding Miao tribesmen felt as if they had been disgraced, especially Third Elder Miao. His face was as black as charcoal. You bunch of old and weak trash. How dare you be so bold? Third Elder Miao gritted his teeth and roared, Little girl, do you want to meddle in other people's business? Today, this elder will make an example of you first. As the third elder of the Miao tribe, in front of the Miao tribesmen, he was repeatedly frightened by a young girl who looked no more than 14 or 15 years old, and he did not even dare to resist. If the news spread to the Miao stockade village, what face would he have left to face the Miao tribesmen? It was very likely that his position as the third elder would not be stable. He had to get back at them. He had to teach this bitch a lesson. Third Elder Miao's eyes revealed a vicious glint as the attack in his hands had already turned into a biting, cold, murderous intent, pouncing towards Yi-Ching Luo. A terrifying aura. In an instant, it spread throughout the entire Bu family village. Grandpa, take the villagers and hide well. With me around, no one will be in danger. Yi-Ching Luo pushed Elder T towards Gu Jingyu's direction. Then, he leaped up and flew towards the profound energy released by Third Elder Miao. Third Elder Miao's attack. She could not avoid him. Once she avoids it, Third Elder Miao's attack would fall on the innocent villagers behind her. And these villagers were just ordinary people. The aftershock of Third Elder Miao's attack would also injure the villagers. The only thing she could do, it was to force Third Elder Miao's attack back. Furthermore, suppress Third Elder Miao. Gu Jingyu supported Elder T. He frowned slightly and raised his head to look at the girl who was leaving a trail of sunset in the sky. His heart was beating faster and faster. Why? He was clearly beside her. But she wasn't willing to rely on him. Why must she choose to risk her life to save the Bu family village's villagers? She obviously knew. He would rush over to the Bu family village to save the villagers. But she didn't say anything to him. This kind of woman. Chapter 24:18. Third Elder Miao and Yi-Ching Luo exchanged over 10 moves. Third Elder Miao realized the disparity between his and Yi-Ching Luo's abilities. His expression became even more solemn. He was overwhelmed with shock. He couldn't believe that this young lady who looked so weak that she could be easily strangled actually possessed such powerful strength. Even he wasn't her match. Since when was there such an incredible young lady in the North Continent? But moments later, Third Elder Miao was covered in injuries as he was flung out in an extremely pathetic state. Third Elder Miao finally stabilized his footing. His entire body was covered in injuries as it affected his muscles. It was so painful that he grimaced in pain. He couldn't help but curse at this wretched hussy's insidiousness. Yi-Ching Luo's injuries on Third Elder Miao didn't even use her profound energy to hurt his internal organs. But she kept on giving Third Elder Miao one injury after another. Moreover, the injuries on every part of his body were all places that could easily be affected, and the pain would be extreme. At this moment, Third Elder Miao was in an extremely sorry state. You bunch of good-for-nothings. Hurry up and help me. Third Elder Miao bellowed angrily at the surrounding Miao people. Those 40 to 50 Miao people were probably shocked by Yi-Ching Luo's ferocious battle power. But no one stepped forward. Third Elder Meow was so angry that he stomped his feet. But no matter how he scolded or howled, those Meow people stood on the spot as they stared at him with wide eyes. No matter how badly he was tortured by Yiqing Luo, he was in an extremely pathetic state. Whereas on the other side, under Gu Jingyu's protection, Elder T had gathered all the Bu family villagers at a corner of the tea house. Elder T hugged the things in his arms tightly as he looked at Yiqing Luo worriedly. Young master, you go help your wife. We'll be fine. Gu Jingyu placed one hand behind his back as he looked at Yiqing Luo's direction with a complicated gaze. He looked at the villagers who were hiding behind him as they trembled in fear but were worried about the situation anxiously. Eventually he shook his head. She can handle it alone. I'll protect you. If she leaves you, the Meow people might take the opportunity to kidnap you to threaten her. When the villagers heard that, they couldn't persuade further. Indeed, if there was no one to protect them, they would be easily captured by the Meow people. By then, it would implicate that young lady instead. Soon, the battle ended. Third Elder Meow lay on the ground in a sorry state, his body covered in blood. He no longer had the strength to move. His body was still twitching and trembling. Yiqing Luo casually swung the long whip in her hand. The whip cut through the air, making a hua-hua sound. It was also mixed with a wave of air that kept rolling. Third Elder Meow trembled even more violently when he saw this. He cowered in fear. Where was the slightest bit of his usual high-spirited demeanor? Just earlier, he was whipped by Yiqing Luo till his entire body was covered with injuries. Moreover, the sharp pain on his body did not numb him at all. Instead, it became more and more painful. He screamed in pain. Even if he wanted to faint, he couldn't. A shadow had already formed in his heart. Yiqing Luo's brows rose slightly, as her long and narrow eyes outlined an extremely shallow arc. She bent down and looked down at the man who was trembling with fear. What? Aren't you going to teach me a lesson? Why was he curled up on the ground? How are you going to lecture me like this? His words caused Third Elder Meow's face to turn red with shame. But Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see his shame. Chapter 24:19. You? How dare you? The more Yiqing Luo said she didn't want his life, the more afraid Third Elder Meow was. His eyes widened and his hoarse voice was filled with hatred and murderous intent. You dare to kill me. I'm an elder of Meow Meow. I'm an elder of Meow Meow Meow. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she smiled fearlessly. Very soon, you won't be. Perhaps this sentence had infuriated Third Elder Meow. His body, which was sprawled on the ground, started to twist violently. Slut, this elder wants you dead. Want you? He was roaring. His voice was almost hoarse. Just at this moment, Yiqing Luo saw clearly that Third Elder Meow's pupils suddenly widened. Numerous black things started to spread out from Third Elder Meow's right eye. The white of his eye slowly turned black. It blended together with the color of his pupils. Third Elder Meow's right eye was pitch black, like a bottomless black hole. It was extremely horrifying. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she stared at Third Elder Meow's right eye. She wasn't sure what was going on with Third Elder Meow's eye. Behind her, Gu Jingyu's panicked voice was heard. Miss Yi, be careful. The next moment, her wrist was tightened. Her body was suddenly pulled by someone. Her face crashed into a solid chest. Gu Jingyu, what are you doing? The unfamiliar man's presence wrapped around her body. Yiqing Luo couldn't tolerate any man other than Xian touching her. She felt a wave of disgust and discomfort. She struggled. Gu Jingyu hugged her even tighter. Bam! The man's suppressed groan was heard beside her ear. Yiqing Luo was stunned as she pushed Gu Jingyu away and looked up at him. Gu Jingyu's face was pale as a trace of blood leaked out from the corner of his lips. He met Yiqing Luo's gaze. He immediately raised his hand and wiped the trace of blood from the corner of his lips as he took a deep breath and stabilized himself. What's the matter? Yiqing Luo grabbed Gu Jingyu's arm. The cold touch made her frown even tighter. Nothing. Gu Jingyu's lips twitched as he shook his head indifferently. You don't need to bother about me. I'll leave these people to you. Yiqing Luo didn't let go of his wrist. Tell me the truth. Gu Jingyu pursed his thin lips, turned his head, and did not speak. Clearly, he wasn't going to tell the truth. Ha! Ha ha! What a lovely couple! Third Elder Miao panted heavily, but he could not stop laughing. Yi Qing Luo pulled Gu Jingyu away and looked at Third Elder Miao. Third Elder Miao's eyes had already returned to normal. She frowned as she recalled Third Elder Miao's black eyes. She then recalled the scene of Gu Jingyu hugging her tightly, his back facing Third Elder Miao, and the scene of him getting injured. Could it be? Your little lover has been poisoned by my special Gu poison. As long as I'm injured, he'll be injured too. Ha ha! Third Elder Miao clutched his chest and laughed. Little girl, didn't you want to kill me? Kill me. Kill me. And this little lover of yours will die with me. Sure enough, it was Gu poison. Yi Qing Luo's expression sunk as she glanced sideways at Gu Jingyu. As expected, as Third Elder Miao laughed heartily, Gu Jingyu's face grew paler. He couldn't even stand stably. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly stretched out her hand to support him as she turned her head to look at Third Elder Miao. Remove the Gu immediately. Chapter 24:20. Yi Qing Luo's fingers clenched as an eerie glint appeared in her eyes. Are you threatening me? Third Elder Miao could tell that Yi Qing Luo cared a lot about her little lover. He had a way to control Yi Qing Luo. Third Elder Miao naturally had nothing to fear. Yes, this elder is threatening you. Yi Qing Luo laughed lightly when she heard that. Her long and narrow eyes outlined a curved arc. It looked extremely demonic and extremely alluring. But her eyes were sparkling with a faint glow. But it was filled with chilliness. It was like the cold wind in December, gathering at the bottom of her eyes. Such an oppressive pressure. Even Third Elder Miao's heart couldn't help but tremble. He suppressed the surging fear in his heart, forcing himself to look as though he was in control of the entire situation. Forcing himself not to lower Yi Qing Luo's imposing manner. Young lady, if you still want your little lover to live, then obediently kneel on the ground and admit your mistake. Then, kill these old fellows in the Bu family village in front of me. Third Elder Miao raised his head complacently as he arrogantly gave out his orders. His gaze towards Yi Qing Luo became colder and colder. Third Elder Miao only felt carefree. He became even more complacent. Young lady, don't you like to meddle in other people's business? Now, I will let you meddle in this matter. How about it? Young lady, what will you choose? Will you save your beloved little lover, or save these old fellows who have nothing to do with you? Third Elder Miao's gaze swept past those 50 over old villagers who were gathered at the corner of the tea stall. The villagers were frightened by his gaze and heard the contents of his words. Their faces were filled with shock and terror. These Miao people were simply too cruel. They actually thought of such a method to torture people's hearts. They were not human at all. The villagers were filled with anger, but no one dared to really vent out their anger. The courage to work together and counterattack in a rampage. They had long been exhausted. At this moment, Elder T hugged the thing in his arms tightly as his steps trembled as he walked out. Young lady, you just promise him to kill us and let him cure your husband's poison. Elder T. The villagers behind him were stunned and hurriedly called out to Elder T. Elder T slowly turned around, facing the villagers. There were still traces of tears on his face. His tear-stained eyes swept across the villagers who had accompanied him for most of his life. Choking with sobs, he said, "This couple was just an innocent passerby. It was our carelessness that got them involved. All this while, we have been enduring the Miao people's plunder and brutal killings. Time and time again, he had to endure and suffer again and again. But it did not change the Miao people's conscience. Instead, it encouraged the Miao people's brutality and cruelty. All of this is our fault. It had nothing to do with anyone else. Now, this pair of innocent passers-by, because they helped us, caused them to be poisoned by the Miao tribe. How can we sit back and do nothing? How can we watch innocent passers-by be tortured by the Gu poison because of our lives? The Miao people had no heart. Don't tell me we don't have any. If this young man really died because of the goo poison, even if we survived, can we really escape from the blame of our conscience? One question after another silenced the villagers. They could not refute. Chapter 24-21. This place is our Boo family's turf. This place belongs to all of us. This place cannot allow anyone to trample, to invade. Elder T's voice, towards the end, was filled with solemnity and determination. He said these words with the heart of meeting his death. Elder T's words landed. He hugged it tightly in his arms, as though it was a treasure. Following that, his vision, bit by bit, swept past all the villagers. This is my personal decision, so even if you don't want to accept, I will not force you. But no need to persuade me. I've already decided. Saying that, Elder T turned around, facing Yi-Ching Luo. Young lady, after I die, pass these things to my old woman. Saying that, Elder T passed the things in his hands to Yi-Ching Luo. Yi-Ching Luo stared at Elder T's hand, not moving for a long time. Elder T gave her a benevolent smile. Young lady, it's all right. Do it. I won't blame you. Just treat it as giving me a release. Yi-Ching Luo squinted her eyes slightly, not saying a word, not moving. The atmosphere froze in an instant. When Third Elder Meow saw this, he finally felt like he was in control of his own life. He laughed complacently and arrogantly. Young lady, look, the Boo family village's villagers are so understanding. They all want to sacrifice themselves to fulfill you two lovers. Why aren't you quickly taking action? Fulfill the villagers' sacrifice for you? Third Elder Meow laughed loudly as he looked at those 50 over Meow people who were still standing on the same spot, not moving at all. Now the initiative is already in my hands. What are you all still in a daze for? Quick, go over and help that young lady. After all, she's just a young lass who hasn't even grown her hair. You all have to help her kill people by the side. Although his words sounded as though he wanted someone to help Yi-Ching Luo, in actual fact, he was forcing Yi-Ching Luo to choose. Forcing Yi-Ching Luo to kill those villagers. However, after Third Elder Meow finished his words, those Meow people still didn't move. They all looked at Third Elder Meow as though he was a wax statue. Third Elder Meow pointed at the Meow people angrily. Good. Now this elder can't order you around. Good, very good. He vented his anger onto Yi-Ching Luo. Young lady, this elder doesn't have the patience to waste words with you. This elder will give you the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn to think about it. If you still haven't made a choice after the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, then this elder will make the choice for you. Hearing this, Elder T became even more anxious. Little girl, just do it. Our Boo family village has implicated you and your husband. Elder T once again raised the thing in his hand towards Yi-Ching Luo's direction. I've lived for most of my life. My only obsession is to wait for my son, to wait for my old woman to come back. Now that I know that my old woman is still alive, I no longer have any obsession. You don't have to worry about me. At this time, a few villagers walked up to her and said, Little girl, Elder T is right. We are already people with half of our bodies in the yellow soil. We will die no matter when we die. This is the territory of our Boo family village. How can we implicate innocent people and sacrifice ourselves for our own lives? Isn't it just death? We're not afraid. Little girl, dying in your hands is better than letting those Meow family village dogs continue to bully us. Chapter 24-22. The villagers were all talking at once. In the end, all the villagers chose to die without any hesitation. They were not willing to implicate the innocent. Looking at these old people in front of her, each and every one of their faces were unafraid of death. Yi-Ching Luo's heart softened slightly. There were many bad people in this world, but at the same time, there were kind people. The villagers in this Boo family village were all very gentle people. They could sacrifice themselves for others. This was a kind of noble sentiment. Yi-Ching Luo's gaze slowly turned gentle. Cough! Cough, cough! A cough rang out, breaking the clamorous argument at this moment. Everyone's gaze turned over. Gu Jingyu sat on the stone bench, one hand placed on the stone table, while the other pressed against his chest. His pale complexion looked extremely weak. Coughing sounds could be heard. The more he coughed, the whiter his face became. That seemingly slender body looked as if it would collapse at any time. "You all, listen to me." Gu Jingyu moved his lips as his voice was hoarse. The villagers immediately stopped their clamoring, waiting for Gu Jingyu to speak. Gu Jingyu moved his body. He supported himself on the stone table as he tried to stand up, but his entire body was weak, unable to exert any strength. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she slowly walked up, supporting Gu Jingyu with one hand. Gu Jingyu's gentle eyes flashed past a glint of joy. He lowered his voice as he thanked her. Then, with Yiqing Luo's support, he stood up, a pair of gentle like water, but filled with an irresistible, imposing manner, looked at those villagers as he spoke in a serious and sincere manner. "Miss Yi, and I appreciate your kind intentions. But your request, we can't do it. Little Master, we've already decided. We've thought it through. You don't need to have any psychological pressure." The villagers immediately opened their mouths. Elder T nodded. "Little Master, this is the best choice for you and for us." Gu Jingyu slowly shook his head. "If I die under the Gu poison, your conscience will not be at ease. But if the entire village, because of me, die under Miss Ye's hands, how can I be at ease?" He looked at those villagers. "Thank you for thinking for us, but we can't be that selfish." "Young Master," Elder T said anxiously, "you still have a bright future ahead of you. We're just a bunch of old guys. Half of our bodies are under the ground. Even if we live, it is meaningless." Gu Jingyu's gaze was firm. "Everyone lives in this world for a unique reason. No one lives without meaning. I can't let you die for my own life." Saying that, Gu Jingyu looked towards Yiqing Luo. "Miss Yi, you cannot kill these villagers." "Young Master," the villagers shouted out one after another. Third Elder Miao couldn't help but laugh when he saw how they were trying to shirk the responsibility. "How touching. Ha! Little girl, the final decision is in your hands. This elder is very curious. How will you choose, huh?" Everyone's vision was placed on Yiqing Luo. The villagers lowered their voices as they pleaded in a low voice, allowing Yiqing Luo to make a decision. Gu Jingyu shook his head at Yiqing Luo, determined not to let everyone die together because of his own poison. The scene was once again in an uproar. Chapter 24-23. When did I say that I want to kill these villagers? Yiqing Luo's clear voice was mixed with a hint of coldness. Her long and narrow eyes rose slightly as she glanced at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu's expression stiffened slightly, as though he felt uncomfortable because of Yiqing Luo's words, and he pressed on his heart as he coughed hard. That pair of gentle eyes flashed past a trace of inexplicable grief. His heart felt as though there was a needle poking at it nonstop. Gu Jingyu gave a bitter smile as his lips twitched. Indeed, he had no place in her heart at all. When Yi Luo didn't deny it, the villagers misunderstood that they were husband and wife. He thought that he was infallible. She had a special place in Yi Luo's heart, a special existence. But in the end, he couldn't even be compared to these villagers. Looking at Gu Jingyu's inexplicable feeling, the surrounding atmosphere became desolate. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. She didn't quite understand the change in Gu Jingyu's thoughts. She couldn't figure it out. She simply couldn't be bothered to think further. Instead, she looked at those villagers. "Don't say any more. I won't kill you for the so-called cure." Elder T frowned. "Young lady, other than the Miao people, no one else in the world can cure the Miao people. We, this group of old fellows, appreciate your kind intentions." Yiqing Luo's pink lips rose slightly as she slowly walked towards Elder T. She raised her fair wrist and gently pressed the parcel that Elder T passed to her, pressing it back into Elder T's arms. "This carries your feelings, carries your longing. You need to pass it to Grandma, Boo personally." Elder T was stunned. But young lady." Don't tell me. Do you really want your own husband to die from the poison? Yiqing Luo looked at Gu Jingyu indifferently. He and I are just ordinary friends. He is not my husband. Elder T's mouth opened wider and wider. This time, Elder T didn't treat Yiqing Luo's explanation as Yiqing Luo being shy. But, even if he is not your husband, then... Some villagers opened their mouth apprehensively. Even if he was not this young lady's husband. But they let this young master be tortured to death by the goo poison just like that. They were the same. They couldn't accept it. Hearing Yiqing Luo's denial, Gu Jingyu's heart fell to the bottom. His entire body felt cold, as if he was in an ice house. The goo poison in his body kept moving about in his internal organs. He is in pain, but it couldn't compare to the pain in his heart. Could it be? Had he really fallen in love with this girl whom he had only met twice? Moreover, he had given his heart? Otherwise, why would he do that just because of a single sentence from this young girl? His heart ached to such an extent. There's no need for you to say anything more. If I wanted you to die, I wouldn't have saved you earlier. Since I've chosen to save you, I'll protect you till the end. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and calmly suppressed the villager's uneasy words. Then, she looked at the man who had lost all support and was sitting powerlessly on the stone bench. As for young Master Gu, although he and I are just ordinary friends, he was poisoned to save me after all. Logically speaking, I can't just watch him die. Yiqing Luo's voice was calm and indifferent. It floated into Gu Jingyu's ears. It made Gu Jingyu's heart jump for no reason. Chapter 24:24. The third elder of Miao clan had heard their conversation. He looked at Yiqing Luo in disdain as he ridiculed. Young lady, do you think that just because you can defeat me, you will be able to cure my goo poison? Thinking of protecting both sides? Do you really think there's such a beautiful thing in this world? I don't know if there's such a beautiful thing, but I know. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes and looked straight into third elder Miao's eyes. You, no matter in which aspect, you're defeated by me. Her voice paused as she sneered. Defeated by me, you're just a clown. Third elder Miao's face sunk as the anger in his chest continued to burn. Good. You still want to be stubborn with me? I'll let you experience the power of the Miao family's goo worms. Third elder Miao raised his palm. He took out a dagger and forcefully cut his palm. Fresh blood dripped down from his palm. He gave a sinister smile as he opened his palm. He started to recite the Miao tribe's incantation. As he recited, as he looked at Yiqing Luo's expression, he wanted to see Yiqing Luo panicking and begging for mercy. But Yiqing Luo's expression was as calm and indifferent as usual. Her gaze was extremely cold. There wasn't a trace of panic or fear. Instead, it was filled with a chilling, cold glint and determination. Third elder Miao's gaze and Yiqing Luo's eyes met for an instant. Yiqing Luo suddenly revealed an extremely light and enchanting smile. Third elder Miao, you can threaten me because of the goo poison in Master Gu's body. If you want to use the goo poison to hurt Master Gu, then I will disregard everything and make a move against you. Third elder Miao's mouth, which was reciting the incantation, suddenly paused. You dare? You could try if I dare. Yiqing Luo retorted with ridicule. As long as you activate the goo worm in his body, I have no worries. Anyway, as compared to Master Gu, you don't want to die. Third elder Miao's face turned steely green as he stared at Yiqing Luo, as though he couldn't wait to tear her into pieces. However, he still cherished his life and stopped the incantation in his mouth. Gu Jingyu, who was sitting by the side, looked at Yiqing Luo in astonishment. Yiqing Luo's earlier words kept repeating in her mind. She was clearly just a young girl. Yet he possessed such boldness. Although what she had said to him sounded so cold, Lin Mingya still felt that it was a pity. But, from her words, it was clear that she cared about him. However, if it was anyone else who said these words, they would have been shocked. It was very possible that such an effect could not be achieved. He was also unable to suppress third elder Miao's aura. It was obviously third elder Miao who had something which could threaten Yiqing Luo. However, Third Elder Meow did not dare to act rashly. She was the only one who could be so domineering and overbearing. Furthermore, he had hit the nail on the head and pointed out Third Elder Meow's fear of death. It was clearly a disadvantage. Yet, he relied on his own aura. He had forcefully reversed the situation. Gu Jingyu's gaze towards Yi Qing Luo became increasingly gentle, increasingly, filled with some kind of feelings. Third Elder Meow, as for me, I have no intention to become enemies with the Meow tribe, but since I've bumped into this matter today, then I have no choice but to care about it. Moreover, doesn't Third Elder Meow like to implicate innocent people? Chapter 24-25. Third Elder Meow's face was ashen. If only he had known that this young girl was so powerful. No matter what, he would never drag this young girl into it. Looking at Yi Qing Luo's smiling face, Third Elder Meow felt like spitting out a mouthful of blood in his heart. What exactly do you want? Third Elder Meow asked while gnashing his teeth. As soon as the words left his mouth, Third Elder Meow shut his mouth in annoyance. He couldn't help but slap his own mouth. Right now, he was clearly in control. It was him who could make use of the venomous worm to threaten Yi Qing Luo into not daring to make a move on him. It should be Yi Qing Luo who was afraid. But after he asked this question, he forcefully lowered his aura by a notch. It had evolved into him, begging Yi Qing Luo to give him a quick death, handing the initiative over to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes squinted slightly as she curled her lips sweetly and spoke in a calm voice. After all, you're also a member of the Meow tribe. As for me, naturally I can't kill you. Hearing this, Third Elder Meow's expression froze and his eyes brightened. That's right, I am an elder of the Meow tribe. I represent the entire Meow tribe. If you dare to touch me, you must shut up. Yi Qing Luo indifferently glanced at Third Elder Meow. His voice was cold and emotionless. Third Elder Meow's throat tightened, and he couldn't make a sound. Yi Qing Luo slowly took a few steps forward. Third Elder Meow's body went limp, and he staggered backward, as though he was frightened by Yi Qing Luo. His entire face was deathly pale. You cured young Master Gu's goo poison and made the fiercest oath of the Meow tribe. You promised never to cause trouble for the Bu family village again. Yi Qing Luo stated her request word by word. Her eyes were calm, and her expression was indifferent. It was as if he was talking about something extremely ordinary. Why should I believe you? Third Elder Meow straightened his neck and glared at him. The only thing he could rely on now was the poison in Gu Jingyu's body. If he cured the goo, Yi Qing Luo had no more misgivings as she struck out at him. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head. Her long eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings. Because you have no choice. What do you mean? Third Elder Meow's face turned even paler, and he took a few more steps back, as though Yi Qing Luo was a dreadful beast. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled upwards as she suddenly opened her palm towards Third Elder Meow. Third Elder Meow thought that Yi Qing Luo was going to attack him. He immediately let out a loud cry. He dodged towards the Meow tribesmen who were standing still at the side. But Yi Qing Luo instructed him to simply open his palm. It was very simple and very casual as he waved it at Third Elder Meow. It was a simple gesture. Instead, it seemed like he was mocking Third Elder Meow for making a fuss over nothing. Third Elder Meow felt that he had been played. She was angry and embarrassed, just as he was about to help a Meow man to stand up. Suddenly, his palm came into contact with something sharp. A bloody gash immediately appeared on his palm. Fresh blood flowed down his palm. Third Elder Meow retracted his hand in pain as he looked at the wound on his palm. It wasn't considered deep, but it was definitely not a shallow wound. He immediately looked towards the place where his palm had touched earlier in puzzlement. From this angle, through the bright light in the surroundings, Third Elder Meow saw it clearly. Beside that Meow man, there was an extremely thin ray of light. Chapter 24-26. What was that? Third Elder Meow's face turned pale as he trembled as he stretched out his hand probing it. He then discovered that was a strand of extremely fine silver thread. Each strand of silver thread was as sharp as a blade. Under the illumination of the light, it reflected sparks, which made one dumbstruck. Third Elder Meow looked at that strand of silver thread in disbelief. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He abruptly turned his head back, looking behind him, at those Meow tribesmen who were unable to move. As expected, he could clearly see that every single Meow tribesman's body was wrapped with strand of silver thread. If one didn't look carefully, there was no way to tell. This was the reason why the Meow tribesmen were unable to move for so long. It wasn't that they didn't listen to him, but their limbs were bound, their bodies were bound. They had no way to move at all. When on Earth, Third Elder Meow only felt his heart pounding in fear. His eyes were filled with shock as he slowly turned his head, looking at Yi Ching Luo. His entire body was stiff, totally unable to twist. This young lady, when on Earth, under the circumstances that he didn't know, using these silver threads to bind the Meow tribesmen, making them unable to resist. From the start till the end, he actually didn't have any sense. Yi Ching Luo's lips curled slightly as she looked at Third Elder Meow with a light smile. Her 5 fingers casually waved towards his open palm. Third Elder Meow saw it clearly. That bursts of silver cold glint scurried in front of his eyes. Those silver threads were all controlled by Yi Ching Luo, using her hands to control those strands of silver threads. This time, he was completely sure. It was this young lady, under the circumstances where he didn't sense it at all, restraining his 50 over Meow tribesmen. Third Elder Meow only felt cold sweat dripping down, as his entire body turned soft, almost unable to stand. Third Elder Meow, you're an intelligent person, so you should be clear that the current you has no conditions and qualifications to negotiate with me. Yi Ching Luo shook her fingers. Those 50 over people who were restrained by the silver threads uncontrollably moved their hands. One after another, they stretched out their hands towards Third Elder Meow. Third Elder Meow angrily stamped his feet as he berated, You dare to touch me? All of you stop. All of you stop for this elder. However, the Meow people had no way to control their own consciousness. No matter how much Third Elder Meow roared in anger, these people's hands uncontrollably reached for Third Elder Meow's neck. I will cure him of the goo. I'll cure him. Third Elder Meow was scared out of his wits. He held his head in a sorry state and sat down on the ground, shouting loudly. Those pairs of hands were about to reach his neck. He stopped. Soon after, the pairs of hands slowly moved away. A path was revealed. Third Elder Meow is indeed an intelligent person. Yi Ching Luo alluringly curled her lips as she gave a calm and indifferent smile. Her charming eyes were filled with indifference and coldness. Then, let's get started. As soon as she finished speaking, all of a sudden, a black pill popped out from his fingertip. The medicine's words fell into Third Elder Meow's lips. It melted into Third Elder Meow's mouth. Third Elder Meow coughed loudly a few times and immediately raised his hand to dig his throat. But after retching a few times, he couldn't spit anything out. What did you feed me? Third Elder Meow clutched his neck as he stared sinisterly at Yi Ching Luo. Chapter 24-27. Damn it. Now the person who lost more than he gained was him, his Meow tribe. He didn't know where Yi Ching Luo got her face to say such words. Third Elder Meow clenched his teeth in anger. The expression on his face contorted into a sinister expression. It looked extremely terrifying. TSK. Third Elder Meow, could it be that? You don't believe that I've poisoned you? Yi Ching Luo's little face was filled with doubt as she blinked her eyes. Third Elder Meow clenched his fists and did not reply. Yi Ching Luo clicked her tongue as she continued on her own, but, Third Elder Meow, it's better for you to choose to believe me. After all, in front of you, there's already Little Marquis and your Meow tribe's eldest young miss. As a warning, when Yi Ching Luo mentioned Little Duke and eldest young Miss Meow, Third Elder Meow's face instantly turned pale as he raised his head in disbelief, staring at Yi Qing Luo without blinking. You are. The news of Yi Qing Luo being hunted down by the entire continent by the Battle King's Manor had already caused an uproar in the Northern Ways continent. The Miao people were naturally aware of this matter. Miao Rongrong, the eldest daughter of the Miao tribe, was the one who cured Yuan Kuang's poison. The Miao tribe's people naturally knew the reason why the Battle King Manor was searching for Yi Qing Luo in the entire continent. Not long ago, Lady Miao returned to the Miao Stockade village in a sorry state. Who knew what they discussed with the Miao tribe's leader? Young Miss Miao announced that she was going into seclusion and refused anyone's visit. The day of the Saintess election was just around the corner. Young Miss Miao was determined to obtain the position of Holy Maiden. How could Miss Miao choose to go into seclusion at this critical juncture? Third Elder Miao had more or less heard about it. It was said that young Mistress Miao had been poisoned. He was poisoned at the War King's mansion. He thought of how the young prince had been poisoned. Third Elder Miao's body suddenly stiffened. Cold sweat dripped down uncontrollably from his entire body. Yi Qing Luo looked at Third Elder Miao's expression and knew that he understood her words. Then, she rubbed her chin and clicked her tongue. Third Elder Miao, I've never been a patient person. Me, release. Third Elder Miao's face was deathly pale, and he spat out each word in a flustered and exasperated manner. No matter what, he would never believe it. This young girl, is she really only 13 or 14 years old in front of me? Such an oppressive pressure. Such a fierce method. This was a threat that he couldn't resist and couldn't resist at all. Little by little, Third Elder Miao couldn't believe it from the bottom of his heart. But that was the truth. The truth was, indeed, he had no choice. He wanted to live. Compared to young Master Gu, he wanted to live more. He could only choose to take a gamble and believe in Yi Qing Luo. He could only believe in Yi Qing Luo. He watched as Third Elder Miao walked towards Gu Jingyu with a dark expression. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a cold arc of ridicule. It was this kind of mental fortitude. He could even become an elder of the Miao tribe. Was she overestimating the Miao tribe? Third Elder Miao was very clear in his heart. The Gu poison in Gu Jingyu's body would bind him and Gu Jingyu together. Once he was hurt in any way, Gu Jingyu would suffer the same amount of damage. How could she really let the Miao tribesman strangle his neck? However, Third Elder Miao cherished his life. When he met with matters related to his life, he had completely lost all his rationality. This was a battle in his heart. Whose inner heart wasn't strong? Who would be toyed with in the palm of his hand? Chapter 24-28. She had grasped Third Elder Miao's weakness, and also grasped Third Elder Miao's weakness. Yi Qing Luo wasn't worried that Third Elder Miao would play any tricks. After all, those two lessons learned from the mistakes of the past had already cast a psychological shadow on Third Elder Miao. Moreover, Gu Jingyu was the young matriarch of the Gufeng sect. Naturally, he wasn't a stupid person. If Third Elder Miao really had a disloyal heart, Gu Jingyu should have sensed it. Yi Qing Luo didn't bother about the two of them as she walked directly towards the Bu family village's villagers. Old grandpas, old ladies. Later let Third Elder Miao promise you, according to the Miao tribe's venomous oath, that he will not harass you anymore. In future, you don't need to worry about being harassed by the Miao tribe anymore. The villagers were so shocked by this turn of events that they couldn't react in time. It was just a matter of a moment. The Miao people, who had always been aggressive, overbearing, and unreasonable, were actually obediently submitting before this young lady. Furthermore, she even swore a venomous oath to return them a peaceful life. Plop! A sound of someone kneeling on the ground was heard. Old T's face was filled with tears as he knelt on the ground. Young lady, you're the entire village's benefactor. Thank you. Thank you. Originally, they thought that today was because of their Bu family village, implicating this innocent young lady. They had not expected that. This young lady had saved the entire village. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly knelt down on one knee and helped Old T up. Old Grandpa, didn't I ask for a pot of tea from you? Those villagers also started to kneel down. They all thanked Yi Qing Luo for her help. How could Yi Qing Luo accept so many elderly's kowtows? She immediately activated her profound energy and dragged their kneeling bodies. Old grandpas, old ladies, if you really want to thank me, in future when I come to the Bu family village, please brew me the best tea. Yi Qing Luo helped Old Tea up. Old grandpa, I have some matters regarding Grandma, Bu, which I want to ask you. Old Tea raised his sleeve and wiped the tears off his face. Young lady, ask. As long as I know something, I will tell you everything without reservation. The Miao tribe kept robbing you, just to find one person. Who is that person? Why are the Miao tribe looking for that person? Unless it was someone very important to the Miao tribe, or someone very important to the Miao tribe. Why would the Miao tribe use such a method to find that person? Moreover, the Miao people seemed to be very certain. The person they were looking for was in the Bu family village. Elder T was stunned as his gaze went past Yi Qing Luo and looked towards third Elder Miao, who was helping Gu Jingyu to cure the gugu. His dry lips slightly pursed. To be honest, we really don't know who the Miao people are looking for. If we knew, we would not have endured the Miao people's plundering and brutal killings time and time again. The other villagers nodded in agreement. I've always felt that the Miao people are deliberately using this as an excuse to plunder our resources. We also want to know who exactly are the Miao people looking for, why that person is not standing out. After the villager finished speaking, he hurriedly explained, I'm not asking that person to step forward and throw away his life. It's just that the villagers of the Bu family village have suffered too much because of that person. More than 10 villagers have died. We should at least have the right to know. Yi Qing Luo nodded, expressing her understanding. Listening to the dozens of villagers talking at once, Lin Fan felt a chill run down his spine. Chapter 24-29. Almost certain, the Bu family village's people were indeed not sure who the Miao tribesmen were looking for. But the Miao tribesmen were certain that the person they were looking for was in the Bu family village. Looked like they could only wait for third Elder Miao to cure Gu Jingyu's Gu before they could get some information from him. About the time it took to brew a cup of tea, third Elder Miao wiped his forehead full of sweat as he panted heavily as he sat heavily on the ground. His black short shirt was already soaked in sweat. Yi Qing Luo walked over quickly as she looked at Gu Jingyu. Gu Jingyu's face wasn't as pale as before. His breathing had also calmed down. His furrowed brows from the pain and the uncontrollable coughing had also been smoothed out. Seeing Yi Qing Luo looking at him, Gu Jingyu gave a gentle smile as he slowly shook his head. I feel much better now. It should be because the Gu has been cured. Yi Qing Luo was assured as she glanced sideways at third Elder Miao. Met with her gaze. Third Elder Miao instinctively crawled back a few steps. He had deeply experienced Yi Qing Luo's boldness and methods. As long as he could live on, he didn't need any integrity. His Gu, I've already cured it. Quickly give me the antidote. Third Elder Miao's voice was still trembling. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled as she raised her index finger and shook it at him. No hurry. Third Elder Miao's face turned pale. What else do you want to do? Also, use your Miao tribe's most vicious method. Promise that you will never harass the Bu family village again. Yi Qing Luo said calmly. His casual tone almost caused third Elder Miao's throat to taste a fishy sweetness, and he almost spat out blood. He suppressed his anger as he gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. All right, I promise. He was about to raise his finger as he made a perfunctory vow, but was stopped by Yi Qing Luo's hand. Third Elder Miao frowned impatiently. What on earth are you? Before he could finish his words, third Elder Miao saw Yi Qing Luo barehandedly grabbing a tribesman from among those Miao tribesmen. The Miao tribe's most venomous oath, or perhaps curse. If third Elder Miao isn't using the Miao tribe's venomous oath, then I'll let you personally experience what a venomous oath is. Yi Qing Luo's threatening voice rang beside his ear. That Miao tribesman almost cried from fright. His body trembled as he met third Elder Miao's warning glare. The Miao tribesman froze. In the next instant, a soft hand gently rested on his shoulder. Beside his ear, the girl's clear and cold voice said, "You have to think about it carefully. I'm not someone you can casually threaten." The Miao tribesman did not know if he had fallen for the honey trap. He was still awed by Yi Qing Luo's boldness. He nodded repeatedly. I don't dare to hide anything. I will tell you the truth." Third Elder Miao stomped his feet in anger. His vicious gaze landed on the tribesman. But Yi Qing Luo directly rebutted why. Looking at Third Elder Miao's expression, it seemed that he didn't want to swear according to my request. "Since that's the case, then I'll—" No, how could that be? "I'll swear right now. According to the Miao tribe's most venomous method." Third Elder Miao immediately opened his mouth as he speedily bit his finger and took out a strange, shaped goo worm. Following that, according to the Miao tribe's method, he gave his promise in front of everyone. Chapter 24:30. Third Elder Miao's hand, which was holding on to that goo worm, paused as he raised his head abruptly. "You can't do this." Not only could he not find trouble with the Bu family village, he still had to protect the Bu family village from other troubles. This meant that his plan to use other channels to slaughter the Bu family village had been blocked. This slut, why did she seem to be able to guess what he was thinking about? Yi Qing Luo only smiled at him. She didn't say anything. Her smile was sweet, but it made that not breathtaking and could only be described as elegant, revealing a bit of enchanting look. But in Third Elder Miao's heart, a surge of terror and fear arose. He trembled slightly as he looked at that extremely faint smile. He closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and spat out a few words. "Fine. Count on me." Yi Qing Luo nodded in satisfaction. "Now, can you give me the antidote?" There was a poison in his body which he couldn't detect. Third Elder Miao was extremely terrified and frightened, afraid that he would become like Yuan Quan, and afraid that he would end up like Miao Rongrong, choosing to go in a closed-door cultivation to detoxify. Yi Qing Luo raised her finger and shook it. Third Elder Miao shut his eyes tightly, already used to Yi Qing Luo going back on her words. "Tell me your request clearly. I just want to find out something from you." Yi Qing Luo walked to the stone table and sat down. "Let's sit down and talk slowly." Third Elder Miao's legs were wobbly. How would he dare to move? Yi Qing Luo didn't force him to sit down. Instead, he poured a cup of tea for Gu Jingyu and a cup for himself. Her actions were leisurely. Every action affected the hearts of the Miao people, following Yi Qing Luo's actions. Third Elder Miao felt that he had aged by more than 10 years today. After Yi Qing Luo finished pouring the tea, she opened her mouth slowly. "Is the person you're looking for in the Bu family village?" Third Elder Miao's face turned pale. "This is the Miao family's internal affairs. But it involves the Bu family village, then it's not an internal affair." Yi Qing Luo sneered. Third Elder Miao averted his gaze. "Other than this matter, I can tell you everything else that I know. What I want to know is this matter." Yi Qing Luo didn't give in at all and was overbearing. She knew that the person the Miao tribe was looking for must be the internal affairs of the Miao tribe, and also the Miao tribe's secret. Otherwise, with the status of the Miao tribe in the Northern Waves continent, they wouldn't be able to survive. They could totally search for the person the Miao people were looking for, just like how Battle King General searched for her. Third Elder Miao's expression turned ugly. He knew clearly how difficult it was to deal with Yi Qing Luo, but he had not expected Yi Qing Luo to be so difficult to deal with. The person that the Miao tribe was looking for was related to the future development of the Miao tribe. If this girl found out, it would definitely destroy the peace of the Miao tribe. This kind of demon must not be allowed to set her target on the Miao tribe. Third Elder Miao would rather die than submit. Yi Qing Luo laughed in ridicule. "It's rare that Third Elder Miao has such backbone. Then I shall fulfill Third Elder Miao's wish to sacrifice myself to protect the Miao tribe's secret." Saying that, she put down the teacup in her hands, stood up, and said to Gu Jingyu, "Master Gu, let's go." Gu Jingyu had regained his energy by now. Even his complexion was back to normal. Hearing Yi Qing Luo's words, he cooperated and stood up, following behind her. The two of them had barely walked a few steps. Chapter 24:31. Young lady? The Meow people were looking for a 14-year-old young lady? Why? Must she be 14 years old? A 14-year-old young lady can be found anywhere. Why must they run over to the Boo family village, which is filled with old grandpas and aunties? Yiqing Luo voiced out her doubts. Third Elder Meow's gaze was wavering. On his face, it was obvious that he was struggling, as though he was hesitating if he should say these things out. But he recalled what Yiqing Luo said, that his patience was not good. He was worried that Yiqing Luo would get impatient. In the end, he was defeated by the fear of death. It's not that a 14-year-old young lady could do it, but Third Elder Meow clenched his fists tightly as his gaze turned towards those Meow people who were tied up. In his eyes, a sliver of murderous intent was fleeting. Following that, Third Elder Meow raised his head as though he had made his final decision. He looked at Yiqing Luo without blinking. That 14-year-old young lady is the Meow tribe's traitor. According to the clues provided by the Meow tribe, after that traitor escaped from the Meow tribe, she hid in the Boo family village. After that, there was no more news of that traitor. So, that traitor's clues must be related to the Boo family village. When Third Elder Meow said this, he paused slightly. Since she's a traitor, why did you only come to the Boo family village to investigate? If she's really a traitor, wouldn't the Meow tribe have already asked the royal family or the Qingyue sect to step out? Yiqing Luo's smile rose slightly as she looked at Third Elder Meow with a smile, which didn't look like a smile. I don't like to beat around the bush. Third Elder Meow better say it in the most straightforward way. Seeing her smile, Third Elder Meow's face turned black as he immediately said, "That young lady is indeed a traitor. She stole our Meow tribe's most sacred ancient goo worm." Ancient goo worm? Yiqing Luo remembered that it was written in the information that Peach had given her. Ancient goo worm, that was the symbol of the Meow tribe. It was actually stolen? That traitor used the ancient goo worm and hid in the Boo family village. After that, we lost all contact. Even the Meow tribe's witchcraft has no way to trace that traitor's whereabouts. Third Elder Meow said, "The matter of the ancient goo worm being stolen must not be spread at such a crucial juncture like the Saintess election. Otherwise, the Meow clansmen will definitely panic. Therefore, the higher-ups gave me a private order to go to the Boo family village to find that traitor and retrieve the ancient goo worm. But the villagers said that they don't know who the person you're looking for is. In this village, if a 14-year-old young lady really came, how could they not remember?" Yiqing Luo raised her doubts. This I don't know either. The order I received was to force that traitor to show himself in the Boo family village. The third elder shook his head hurriedly. It's not that I'm hiding anything, but although we are elders, we don't have any real power in the Meow tribe. Most of the internal affairs of the Meow tribe, especially those related to the future of the Meow tribe, the Meow tribe wouldn't let me know too much. These words were not false. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. Do you know who that traitor is? Chapter 24:32. Yiqing Luo nodded thoughtfully. Third Elder Meow could not wait any longer. The fear and uneasiness in his heart rose to the peak. I've told you everything. I've done everything you asked of me. Now, give me the antidote. Antidote? Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Third Elder Meow was so anxious that his entire face was twisted into a ball. Little ancestor, I really told you everything. Hurry up and give me the antidote. Can you please? The more anxious he was. Third Elder Meow felt waves of intense pain in his abdomen. He was extremely flustered, thinking of Yuan Kuang's tragic state. He almost cried. The smile on Yiqing Luo's face gradually enlarged in Third Elder Meow's pupils. She chuckled and said, "What antidote? You really believed it?" Third Elder Meow stopped crying. For a moment, he could not wrap his head around it. Yiqing Luo covered her mouth as she burst out laughing. Third Elder Meow, I merely fed you and it's just a pill which helps in detoxifying your body. Just squat in the latrine for 1 or 2 days and you'll be fine. You, Third Elder Meow's heart was filled with fear and unease. At this moment, he was actually told that it was just a joke, and he was in this joke. He allowed Yi Qing Luo to knead him as he obediently answered all of her questions. You still have the energy to settle accounts with me? Yi Qing Luo smiled as she pointed at Third Elder Meow's tummy. Be careful, don't drop it on your pants. Yuck. Third Elder Meow indeed didn't have the energy to settle the scores with Yi Qing Luo. His stomach rumbled like an avalanche. Unable to bear it any longer, he pointed his finger at Yi Qing Luo forcefully in the air. Then, he hugged his stomach and quickly fled. The remaining 50-odd Meow people were all abandoned here by Third Elder Meow. You really just gave it to him. Gu Jingyu looked at Third Elder Meow's expression and could not help but laugh. He had never expected this. Yi Qing Luo actually used the medicinal pills made from croton as poison to coax Third Elder Meow. This was a psychological battle. Yi Qing Luo had obtained a complete victory. Yi Qing Luo smiled as she shrugged her shoulders. He's so gullible. I'm also very helpless. The smile on Gu Jingyu's lips became increasingly gentle. But Yi Qing Luo didn't appreciate his warm smile. Instead, he walked directly to Elder T and said, The Meow people will not come to the Boo family village to harass you anymore, and Third Elder Meow will protect the safety of the Boo family village. You can rest assured. Old-time T was in a trance. Even when Yi Qing Luo was talking to him, he didn't really understand. He just casually replied with a his eyes staring ahead without any focus. The villagers behind him expressed their gratitude, one after another. Yi Qing Luo responded with a smile. He followed Elder T's gaze and looked over. He saw the Meow tribesman frozen on the spot, unable to move. She gently patted Elder T's hand and smiled. These Meow people are used to following the Third Elder and doing evil. They have also bullied the Boo family village many times. Now, they're meat on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. If you want to take revenge, Elder T was stunned. The villagers behind him who were expressing their gratitude were also stunned. Kill those Meow people? Seek revenge for their Boo family village's dead villagers? Seek revenge for the humiliation they had suffered in the hands of the Meow people? Chapter 2433. Yi Qing Luo saw the expressions of the villagers. She curled her lips slightly as her voice became gentle. Of course, all of this depends on your own thoughts. The villagers looked at those Meow people. Then they looked at the surrounding villagers. After a while, an old villager in his 60s suddenly picked up his hoe and rushed over. Why didn't you kill them? They're not good people. They killed the innocent and bullied us. A villager rushed up. The other villagers couldn't hold it in any longer. They all carried their hoes and followed him. There were still some villagers who were filled with apprehension as they stood on the spot, hesitating and uneasy. Those indignant villagers. They were all in the past. The villagers who almost lost their lives in the hands of the Meow people. And quite a number of their loved ones had died in the hands of the Meow people. To the Meow people, how could these villagers not hate them? 10 over villagers raised their hoes and hit one of the Meow people with all their might. Those Meow people were firmly restrained by the silver wires and had no way to resist or evade. They bore the pain of the villagers' hoes smashing onto their bodies. The villagers vented the anger in their hearts. But just as one of the villagers was about to smash the head of one of the Meow people with his hoe, that villager was unable to make his move. The rest of the villagers also stopped their actions of punching the Meow people. They looked towards that villager. That villager raised his hoe up high as his entire body tensed up and turned stiff. After some time, that villager suddenly let out a sorrowful and indignant howl. H. He used strength and threw the hoe in his hand onto the ground. His wrinkled face was filled with tears. I can't do it. I can't do it. They are all living people. If I were to avenge my loved ones who died in their hands and kill them, then what's the difference between me and them? No matter how much hatred and resentment, the villagers still couldn't kill them. The rest of the villagers were the same. They only wanted to beat the Meow people up to vent the pain and anger from being bullied for such a long time. But they had never thought of killing them. One by one, the villagers threw down the hose in their hands. Forget it. Little girl, you've already taught Third Elder Meow a lesson on our behalf. And you've also made Third Elder Meow swear a poison oath. That's enough. The villager who was the first to rush up smashed his hoe on the ground. Just leave them here and let them fend for themselves. The villager's choice could be said to be within Yi Qing Luo's expectations. The villagers were kind to begin with. They were just ordinary people. How could they be like the Miao people or other Xian practitioners, viewing human lives as worthless? Just as you said, leave them here. Whether they live or die will depend on their luck. Yi Qing Luo smiled faintly as she didn't persuade the villagers to harden their hearts and kill these Miao people to get rid of all future troubles. Anyway, this group of Miao people. However, he had seen Third Elder Meow's sorry state and humiliation today. Furthermore, he had personally witnessed Third Elder Meow betraying the Miao tribe. How could the Third Elder of the Miao tribe possibly let them live and return to the Miao tribe? These people would die sooner or later. So don't let these Miao people who were worse than beasts disturb the hearts of the Bu family village villagers. Chapter 2434. Yi Qing Luo turned her head back and saw Elder T hugging the things in his arms tightly. The expression on his face was extremely solemn. Yi Qing Luo was stunned for a moment and smiled. All right. Elder T walked straight to the small wooden house next to the tea shed. Just as he stepped one foot in, he suddenly thought of something and paused again. He looked at Gu Jingyu, who was treating the injured muscles and bones of the villagers who were kicked by the Miao tribesmen. Young master, please wait here for a while. Elder T said apologetically. Gu Jingyu raised his head and revealed a warm smile as he shook his head. No problem. I'll wait for you here. Elder T walked into the wooden house. Yi Qing Luo took a look at Gu Jingyu and looked at those injured villagers. She took out a few bottles of medicine for external injuries from the profound phoenix ring and passed it to Gu Jingyu. Sorry to trouble you. Her clear and gentle voice was as elegant as water. In an instant, it made his heart jump uncontrollably. He stretched out his hand and received the medicine bottle from Yi Qing Luo. Their fingers touched. Gu Jingyu's face floated a tinge of red. He quickly received the medicine bottle and turned around, looking at the villagers in front of him. Yi Qing Luo had no feelings for Gu Jingyu. Naturally, she didn't notice Gu Jingyu's emotions. She totally didn't notice that Gu Jingyu had a different feeling toward her. After Yi Qing Luo gave him the medicine, she directly walked into Elder T's wooden house. She just walked in. The wooden door behind her was shut tightly. Elder T walked to the table with a solemn face and placed those little things and paintings on the table. Young lady, although this is the first time we met, but I believe you. You're a kind-hearted good lady. Elder T said seriously, so this matter, I'm only telling you alone. Yi Qing Luo sat by the side, and from Elder T's words, she heard some deeper meaning. What you want to say is related to that. Meow, tribe traitor, which Third Elder Meow mentioned. Elder T's expression revealed an obvious astonishment. After some time, he nodded yes. Third Elder Meow said, that young lady reached Bu family village and disappeared. Do you know who that young lady is? Yi Qing Luo's interest was piqued as she placed both hands on the table and asked him seriously. Miao tribes matter. She actually didn't have any intention of getting involved. But her purpose in coming to the Northern Wave continent was to take away the person with the best goose skill in the Miao tribe and bring him back to the West continent. Miao Rongrong's personality. Even if she was in the palm of her hand, Yi Qing Luo still doubted Miao Rongrong's ability. In this, he made the entire Miao tribe search for the young girl with the ancient goo worm. Perhaps he could also help her. Most importantly, she had made Miao Rongrong look like that. With Miao Rongrong's personality, she would definitely not let the matter rest. Rather than waiting for Miao Rongrong to cause trouble for her, it would be better to think of a way to stop Miao Rongrong from finding trouble with her. So, the matter of the Miao tribe searching for this young girl, she was determined to take care of it. Actually, The Meow people kept coming to the Boo family village to look for someone. At first, I really didn't know who they were looking for, because the Boo family village had never seen such a young girl. They were passing by the Boo family village. Most of them were married women. She followed her husband to the holy spring to pray for a child. However, when third elder Meow mentioned hiding in the Boo family village with an ancient goo worm, I thought of someone. Chapter 2435. Young lad? Third elder Meow said it was a young lady. But the one who brought the goo worm was a young lad? Third elder Meow was such a timid person. He wouldn't dare to lie to her at that critical juncture. It was even more impossible for Elder T to lie to her. Could it be that young lady, in order to avoid the Meow people's pursuit? So, she deliberately disguised as a man to confuse them? That young lad is a very intelligent and quick-witted person, and my wife, son, and daughter-in-law like him very much. He paused, as though he was recalling the past. My grandchildren are brothers with that young lad, and their relationship is very close. I also treated him as my second grandson. Then why did she only stay in the Boo family village for half a month? Yiqing Luo could tell that Elder T really liked that young lad. Elder T shook his head. That day he left in a hurry and only had time to say goodbye to us before he left in a hurry. After that, I have never seen him again. Speaking of this, Elder T suddenly recalled something. When he came to say goodbye, my wife couldn't bear to let him go. He said, he must leave, otherwise the Boo family village will be destroyed because of him. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly. In her mind, a light flashed past. She seemed to have thought of something as her lips curled into a faint smile. When did Grandma Boo leave the village? About 7 to 8 days after that young lad left the village. The Meow people who were originally circling around the Boo family village directly rushed to the Boo family village, wantonly plundering their resources, humiliating the villagers. Elder T's fist clenched tightly. Towards the Meow people, he had always harbored hatred. The Meow people came once every 3 days, became once every 2 days, and after that, they came every day to create trouble. The young villagers couldn't stand it, so they brought their families and fled to the big city. At that time, my son and daughter-in-law also escaped. The two of them brought their 2 children and headed to Chinua City, thinking that after they had settled down in Chinua City, they would come to the Boo family village to fetch us. But after waiting for a month, an entire month, those villagers who fled to the big city all went missing, my son. My daughter-in-law all went missing. Elder T's voice was choked with emotion. Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk a little. The people of the Meow tribe were certain that the person they were searching for was in the Boo family village. How could they let the villagers of the Boo family village leave? Those villagers who had formed teams to escape to the big city. There was no more news. It was highly possible that he had been killed by the Meow people. This was only Yiqing Luo's guess. Naturally, she wouldn't say it out loud. After all, the villagers here all had the thought of fleeing to the big city with their sons and daughters. They had been supporting themselves and staying in the Boo family village to wait for their loved ones. Moreover, Yiqing Luo still had some doubts in her heart. Back then, when Old T's son and daughter-in-law fled the Boo family village with their children, if he was really killed by the Meow people, then how could Grandma Boo's grandson and granddaughter be killed by Yuan Kwong in Happy Heart City? I guess it was just a guess. We couldn't get any news from our family, so this old woman secretly left the Boo family village and went to Chinua City to look for our son. Until now, one by one, they had all lost contact. Elder T was actually a little panicked, but he always looked on the bright side. Chapter 2436. If third Elder Meow hadn't mentioned the ancient goo worm just now, I might not have connected the young lady that the Meow people were searching for with that young man. Elder T sighed. When he first came to my house, he was covered in wounds. He held a fist-sized bug in his arms like it was a treasure. I had never thought that it would be the Meow tribe's goo worm. The young lad also said that the worm was the only thing that his mother left for him. In that case, the person that the Meow people were looking for should be the young man that old-time T mentioned. and the Meow people said that it was a 14-year-old girl. In that case, her previous guess of a woman disguised as a man was established. Little girl, I will only tell you about this matter. If you have the chance, you can find that little fellow. Cough, little girl, tell her not to return to the Boo family village, and don't think about coming to the Boo family village to see me. Elder T said what was on her mind and suddenly felt much more relaxed. From a moment, third elder, Meow, mentioned the symbol of the person he was looking for. His heart had always been on tenterhooks. Third elder Meow spoke. The more certain he was, the more certain he was. The person the Meow people were looking for was the young lad who had stayed in his house for half a month. Tell this little girl these secrets. It wasn't just because the little girl had saved the Boo family village, but he believed if it was this little girl would definitely help the young man. Yiqing Luo was stunned. Don't you blame her for disturbing the peace of the Boo family village? If it wasn't for her, the Meow people wouldn't have harassed the Boo family village. Elder T, on the other hand, cracked a smile. It was a kind and warm smile. She once brought our Boo family village precious joy. In my heart, I've long regarded her as family. So how could I blame her? Elder T's words warmed Yiqing Luo's heart. The simple Boo family village. The villagers were simple and honest. Fortunately, she had come to the Boo family village today. She protected the Boo family. Only then did he not let these kind and gentle people get hurt. Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered slightly. Her smile was extremely gentle. If I see her, I will help her. After hearing Yiqing Luo's words, Elder T's solemn expression finally relaxed. He sighed heavily, and a guilty expression appeared on his face. I'm sorry I used your kindness. But, other than you, I don't know who else to tell this secret to. Yiqing Luo gently curved her pink lips. It's not considered as using. Actually, if the person you're talking about is really the young girl that third Elder Meow mentioned, then I have my reasons for looking for her. Elder T didn't care what Yiqing Luo's motive was, he still smiled. You can protect her for me. The two of them exchanged a few more words. Outside the door, the sound of the villagers shouting for food could be heard. Only then did the two walk out of the wooden house. The tea shed was already filled with plate after plate of dishes. Although it didn't look beautiful, it made people feel warm. The villagers took advantage of the time when she was talking to Elder T and Gu Jingyu was treating the injured. The dishes were specially made by him. It was already made from the best materials in the Boo family village. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a smile as she followed the villagers to their seats. This meal, Yiqing Luo ate extremely comfortably. After the meal, Yiqing Luo bade farewell to the villagers and prepared to leave. If she didn't return, Chapter 2437. Furthermore, she should go back to settle the matters at the Battle King's residence. The injured villagers were all bandaged up. They would be back to normal after a few days of recuperation. Those Meow tribesmen who were restrained by the silver wires, Yiqing Luo was prepared to bring them to that small forest. Under the grateful gazes of the villagers, the two of them were sent to the village entrance. Yiqing Luo halted her footsteps as she looked at Elder T. Old Grandpa, you really don't intend to go to Qinghua City? Elder T lowered his head as he shook his head slowly. Not going. If it's possible, help me pass this letter to this old woman. He took out a crumpled letter from his bosom. Apparently, it wasn't just written. It was a letter which he had written for a long time. Yiqing Luo received the letter and kept it solemnly. I will definitely pass the letter to her. On the way back to Qinghua City, Gu Jingyu had been trying to find a topic as he tried to find out about Yiqing Luo's news. On account that Gu Jingyu had suffered from third Elder Meow's venom in order to save her. Yiqing Luo replied to a few simple questions. But towards the end, Gu Jingyu had already asked about her family situation. Yiqing Luo finally sensed that something was amiss. Although her EQ wasn't considered high. But if she didn't sense wrongly, this Gu Feng's sex young matriarch seemed to be interested in her, inquiring about her family situation. Was he intending to propose marriage? This thought made Yiqing Luo felt as though she was struck by lightning. It should be. She was too narcissistic. After all, the face she had changed was not considered as a great beauty. With Gu Jingyu's status as a young matriarch, he should have seen all kinds of beauties. Cough! Yiqing Luo cleared her throat as she stopped in her tracks. Gu Jingyu, who was inquiring about Yiqing Luo's family situation, also stopped in his tracks as he looked at her warmly. That gaze seemed as though he could only tolerate her alone in this world. Yiqing Luo shuddered. That. Young matriarch Gu, can I ask you a question? Gu Jingyu's eyes brightened slightly, and the smile on his face was tinged with a hint of joy. I asked you so many questions, so you can naturally ask me back. Are you? Yiqing Luo deliberated over her words. Interested in me? Gu Jingyu's smile froze, and a suspicious blush appeared on his face. He frantically shifted his gaze away, not daring to look at Yiqing Luo. He seemed to have not expected that she would expose his thoughts so straightforwardly. Gu Jingyu's expression made Yiqing Luo feel that there was nothing left to live for. Oh no, oh no. This was obviously true. She had hit the nail on the head. She had already changed her appearance, yet she could still attract the attention of men. Could it be that her charisma was that strong? Yiqing Luo scratched the back of her head. If you're really interested in me, it's better to dispel this idea as soon as possible. Why? Gu Jingyu raised his head abruptly as his thin lips pursed slightly. Miss Yi, although I'm Gu Feng's sex young matriarch, but I'm not the same as those hedonistic sons. He anxiously tried to explain himself as his face bore a rare, serious look. My background is clean, and I don't have any other women by my side. Moreover, I've always felt that true love and liking should only be given to one person. If you're able to be with me, I promise you, I will absolutely not take in concubines. Cough, cough, cough. Yiqing Luo was so frightened that she started coughing violently. Chapter 2438. Gu Jingyu's face turned pale as though he had been struck by lightning, staring at Yiqing Luo in disbelief. Yiqing Luo rubbed her forehead as she sighed helplessly. Do I look like someone who doesn't have a fiancé? No, no. Gu Jingyu took some time before he found back his voice as his face was still pale. Only. I'm very surprised you've already betrothed yourself to a fiancé. Looking at Gu Jingyu's expression, which had suffered a huge blow, Yiqing Luo didn't want to reveal any more hot news. She only nodded her head casually. Following that, she persuaded him earnestly. So, young sect Master Gu, your future is infinitely bright, so you shouldn't just place your sights on me alone. Just like what you said, you don't have any other ladies by your side, so when you see me, you'll have a different feeling towards me. Actually, this isn't what you think of as love and like. But this was their first meeting, and they didn't spend much time together. Yiqing Luo didn't think that Gu Jingyu's feelings toward her were that deep. At most, he was just interested. She had to cut off Gu Jingyu's interest toward her as soon as possible. To Gu Jingyu, to her, it had to be better. Most importantly, her Xian was a moving vinegar jar. One Zhuwu Xian had already made Xian extremely unhappy. If there was another Gu Jingyu, Xian would probably tie her to his side. Recalling that Xiao Wu Wu had already gone to the upper realm to tell Xian about the matters in the northern continent, there was a possibility that Xian would be back soon. Before Xian returned, this peach blossom must be cut off without leaving any traces behind. Just as Yiqing Luo was cursing incessantly in her heart, Gu Jingyu's expression instantly turned extremely gloomy. His brows were filled with grief. It had long lost its usual warmth. His fingers clenched tightly as his eyes, which were like the vast stars, were slightly red. You're not me, so how would you know if I love and like you? His voice was filled with the pain he was enduring, as though he was complaining about Yiqing Luo's cruelty. Yiqing Luo's throat tightened as she looked at the pale-faced man with red eyes, speechless. Indeed, she wasn't Gu Jingyu. She was unable to stand on Gu Jingyu's position to judge his feelings. However, Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as her alluring eyes lifted up slightly, meeting his reddened eyes. Sorry, my heart is very small and can only accommodate my fiancé alone. Gu Jingyu clenched his fists even tighter by his side. His fingertips had already turned white. Yiqing Luo could only pretend not to see it. Sometimes, giving the other party hope when there was no hope was truly cruel. She faintly said, "Many thanks for blocking Third Elder Miao's insect poison for me in the Bu family village. I will remember this kindness." With that, she turned around and walked towards the other side of the city gate. Gu Jingyu opened his mouth several times, wanting to chase after her and call her. But when the words reached the tip of his tongue, recalling Yiqing Luo's cold gaze earlier, all the words were stuck in his throat. Finally, the hand that was stretched out in midair slowly lowered. It was as if he had lost all his strength. By the time Yiqing Luo returned to the basement of the Peach Blossom restaurant, it was already very late. Smelling Yiqing Luo's scent nearing, Kitty Lee was the first to scurry out as she held onto Yiqing Luo's arm. "Sister, you're finally back." Yiqing Luo rubbed Kitty Lee's little head. "I've made you worried." Kitty Lee rubbed her head against her body. Chapter 2439. Yiqing Luo grinned as she rubbed Kitty Lee's head. "Well done, my little kitty." Kitty Lee smiled contentedly at the compliment. "What kind of messy plan are you making in the dark again?" Suddenly, the door in front of them opened and a slender and tall figure walked out. Jun Qingwu was dressed in a lotus-colored brocade long dress, which accentuated her temperament and made her look extremely charming. Seeing Jun Qingwu, Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up as she hugged Kitty Lee and went forward. "Little Wu, when did you come back?" She just went over. Jun Qingwu had already raised her hand and placed it on Yiqing Luo's forehead. "Ayaya, little Wu, a day apart feels like 3 years. Don't be so heartless." Yiqing Luo blinked her long and narrow eyes as she scurried towards Jun Qingwu again. Looking at such a shameless sister, Kitty Lee couldn't bear to look at her. She used her claws to cover her eyes and scurried out of Yiqing Luo's arms. Her arms no longer had the soft touch of a kitten. Yiqing Luo directly opened her arms and pounced towards Jun Qingwu. "Stop!" Jun Qingwu stopped Yiqing Luo and rolled her eyes before turning around and walked into the room. Yiqing Luo's smile widened as her brows were dyed with a dimple. She quickly caught up. Entering the room, Jun Qingwu flicked her sleeves and a light breeze closed the door. "Little Wu," Yiqing Luo sat opposite Jun Qingwu with a smile. That deliberately prolonged ending made Jun Qingwu's petite body tremble as she looked at her in disgust. "You want to ask about the Overlord, right?" Yiqing Luo smiled even more brilliantly. "You're indeed Little Wu. You can even guess someone's heart so accurately." Jun Qingwu rolled her eyes again. "It's written all over your face. Do you need me to guess?" This means that someone treats Little Wu as one of their own. Everything is written on your face. That's the trust in Little Wu. Yiqing Luo's curved eyes were filled with a pool of spring water. Jun Qingwu. In order to know the news of the Overlord in the upper realm, little Qing Luo, you don't even want your integrity? This thick-skinned, he was really shameless. Jun Qingwu didn't keep Yiqing Luo in suspense. "I have indeed met the Overlord, and the matter of Miao family colluding with the people from the upper realm has already been told to the Overlord. He asked me to tell you that as long as he's around, there's no need to worry about other unnecessary factors. Just go ahead and do things your own way." After conveying this message, the corner of Jun Qingwu's mouth twitched. She couldn't imagine, once the Overlord and Shao Qing were together, just how lovey-dovey would they become? These two people clearly hadn't even met face to face. They were clearly separated by a plane. She was even fed a mouthful of dog food for no reason. However, when Jun Qingwu looked at the young girl in front of her, that pair of charming eyes gradually lit up after listening to her words. She took a deep breath. "Fine, if I'm fed dog food, so be it." He had to get used to it. "Little Wu." Then did he say when he'll be back? Yiqing Luo's eyelashes fluttered slightly, revealing the nervousness in her heart. Jun Qingwu remained silent for a moment. His matters in the upper realm have not been settled. After he's settled those matters, he'll be back immediately. Yiqing Luo's face flashed past a sliver of disappointment. Chapter 2440. Yi Qing Luo covered her face, which was pinched in pain. Her emotions were still somewhat unstable. There was no sign of the joyous spirit when she saw Jun Qingwu earlier. She stretched out her arm and placed it on the table, immediately placing her face on the table. She felt the cold touch of the table, soaking through her skin. Yi Qing Luo sighed helplessly. Xiao Wu Wu, Xian, what is his identity? Is he in the upper realm? The same as in Nirvana realm. A highly respected person. Jun Qingwu was about to comfort her when she paused. Her cold and elegant face froze for a moment. Jun Qingwu's emotions changed very quickly. Yi Qing Luo was feeling lost and had not raised her head to discover the change in Jun Qingwu's expression. She heard Jun Qingwu's voice. No matter where the Overlord is, he will not be an ordinary person. As for the specific identity of the Overlord, I think the Overlord would like to tell you personally. Yi Qing Luo's eyes moved slightly. She was naturally clear. Dmo Xian was absolutely not an ordinary person. Even in the upper realm, his status, his identity were all revered. Thinking of this, Yi Qing Luo felt that the gap between her and Dmo Xian was getting bigger and bigger. She even said that she wanted to be on par with Dmo Xian. Today, she couldn't even head to the upper realm. Xiao Qing Luo, what's with this pitiful expression? A hand poked Yi Qing Luo's head hard. Yi Qing Luo sucked in a breath of cold air in pain, hugged her head, and raised her head. Jun Qingwu looked at her without blinking, her slender brows raised high. Isn't it just a man not by your side? The Overlord is not seducing other women outside, not abandoning you, not abandoning you. What nonsense are you thinking about in this brain of yours? Jun Qingwu, who had always been cold and aloof, now put on an earnest and well-intentioned look. But it made Yi Qing Luo feel refreshed and laughed out loud. She revealed the same cheeky smile from before. Xiao Wu Wu, you're really trying your best to persuade me to pull myself together. Seeing that Xiao Wu Wu is so worried about me, I'll forget about Xian and all that. Shoo shoo shoo. I'm not worried about you. I'm just fulfilling my promise to the Overlord. Jun Qingwu pushed Yi Qing Luo away with a look of disgust. But Yi Qing Luo regained her smile. Jun Qingwu finally heaved a sigh of relief. Yi Qing Luo didn't miss Jun Qingwu's relaxed expression as she smiled sweetly. I know, there's a huge disparity between Xian and me. Those who know Xian all feel that. I'm not worthy of Xian. However, Xian chose me. Regardless of whether I was worthy or not, the person Xian loved was me. Even if it's for Xian, I will work hard to make myself stronger, work hard to be able to keep up with Xian's footsteps, work hard to make everyone recognize my qualifications to be by Xian's side. Seeing that Yi Qing Luo's emotions had returned back to her confident and flamboyant self, Jun Qingwu looked at Kitty Li, who was sitting at the side and chewing on a biscuit. All right, you found out more or less about Dizun. Now, tell me, what scheme did you and Kitty Li plan? How is this a scheme? Yi Qing Luo put on a shy look as she patted Jun Qingwu's shoulder. It's just a small prank, wait till daybreak. I'll bring you to watch a good show. Your smile is so sinister. Who would believe you if you said it wasn't a scheme? Jun Qingwu rolled her eyes. Who would believe that? Yi Qing Luo turned to look at Kitty Li. Kitty, do you believe it? Chapter 2441. The next day, it wasn't even 5 o'clock in the morning when Peach scuttled into Yi Qing Luo's room and actually woke Yi Qing Luo, Li Mao, and the rest up. Qing Luo, something big has happened. Peach pressed her hands on Yi Qing Luo's shoulders and pressed hard. Do you know, there are more than 10 black-robed men's corpses hanging at the entrance of the Battle King's residence. Yi Qing Luo yawned. I know. Huh? Peach was stunned. She had just received the news, and Qing Luo knew about it so quickly. Li Mao rubbed her sleepy eyes. Mao Mao knows too. Peach immediately released Yi Qing Luo's shoulders with a frustrated look and took a few steps back. How did you know before me? Jun Qingwu was already dressed neatly and leaned lazily against the door. The good show you were talking about, is it this one? Yi Qing Luo nodded with a smile. Isn't this show exciting? Jun Qing Wu arrogantly rolled her eyes at her. Peach then seemed to understand the meaning in their words. You mean, this matter is done by you? Yi Qing Luo shook her head. No. Peach heaved a sigh of relief and patted her chest. I knew it. How could such a thing happen under the nose of the 3,000 peach blossoms? I don't even know. Before she could finish her words, Peach felt her wrist being grabbed by something. Peach lowered her head and met with a pair of watery eyes. Her heart warmed. Mau Mau, what's the matter? Kitty Lee tilted her head, tugged at her sleeve, and said very honestly, the thing you said, it was Kitty who did it. Peach was like a bolt of lightning. She looked like she had suffered a serious blow as her delicate body swayed and fell backwards. You actually hid it from me and did such a big thing. If it was done by Yi Qing Luo, she could still comfort herself a little. After all, Yi Qing Luo was a pervert. What Yi Qing Luo did, it was natural that the 3,000 peach blossoms had no inkling. But this matter was actually done by Li Mao. Peach expressed that she had suffered a huge blow. Peach, have you been hooking up with some handsome young man recently? They don't even care about the 3,000 peach blossoms anymore. Yi Qing Luo stood up lazily as she raised her hand and patted Peach's shoulder. The news that the Battle King's Manor had sent soldiers to hunt me down, you actually haven't received it till now. TSK. Looks like General Battle King is really on guard against your 3,000 peach blossoms. Peach covered her face and screamed, What handsome young man! The fact that I fell for Jean Z means that I'm not someone who looks at appearances. How could I be seduced by a pretty boy? I'll go investigate the Warlord's mansion right now. With that, Peach ran out with a thunderous look on her face. Wait. Yi Qing Luo was tickled by Peach's actions as she called out to him. Help me investigate on the South Continent's young matriarch, his real motive for coming to the North Continent, and Bu family village, as well as the Miao tribe's ancient goo worm. Peach stared at her helplessly. You're really rude. After all, I am your idol. Yi Qing Luo nodded her head and smiled. Peach clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. Consider it that I've fallen into your hands. Saying that, she turned around angrily and left the room. Yi Qing Luo waved her hand behind her back and laughed loudly. Little Peach, thank you. Peach left even faster. Chapter 2442. Outside the Battle King's residence, there were quite a number of commoners who pretended to be passers-by. In actual fact, they were trying to find out the gossip about the Battle King's residence, although they knew clearly in their hearts. The more gossip about the Battle King's residence, the faster they would die. But that couldn't stop the commoner's heart from gossiping. You've all heard about it. When I passed by the Battle King's residence, I saw 10 bloody corpses hanging at the entrance. Who's declaring war on the Battle King's residence? This must be a provocation. Someone is targeting the Battle King's residence. The commoners who knew about it were discussing, and those passers-by who were attracted by the solemn atmosphere of the Battle King's residence were astonished after hearing the commoners' discussion. I was wondering why there were so many soldiers guarding the Battle King's residence so early in the morning. So, it's because of this matter. Say, who do you think would do such a thing with such great fanfare? It's going to be Qin US Sec's sovereign's 50th birthday soon. For such a thing to happen in the Battle King's residence, wouldn't it be infuriating to Qin US Sec sovereign? That's right. I really don't know who the Battle King's residence has offended. There's actually someone who dares to provoke the Battle King's residence in Qinghua City. When Yi Qing Luo, Jun Qingwu, and Kitty Lee arrived at the Battle King's residence, it was extremely crowded outside the Battle King's residence. At this time, it was not even 7 o'clock in the morning yet. Outside the Battle King's residence, rows of well-trained soldiers stood upright, preventing anyone who came to inquire about the news or visit to enter the residence. Yi Qing Luo leaned forward a little, although the outside of the residence had been cleaned. But the smell of blood was still so pungent. Yi Qing Luo's group of 3 ladies. All of them had elegant figures, and their looks weren't bad. Towards beautiful things, everyone's eyes were always able to discover it quickly. Very quickly, someone recognized Yi Ching Luo as the young lady whom General Battle King had ordered the entire city to search for. Thinking back to this morning's gossip, the commoner's gaze towards Yi Ching Luo was instantly filled with fear. Those corpses, could it be this young lady's doing? During this period of time, the common people's minds were filled with all sorts of conjectures. There was a young girl named Yi Luo, and a secret that had to be told to the warlord's mansion. When the commoners' gazes were all gathered onto Yi Ching Luo, a man dressed like a general who was guarding the entrance of the warlord's mansion walked over. "Are you Miss Yi Luo?" Yi Ching Luo raised her brows and raised her eyes to meet the general's eyes. "Don't tell me. General Battle King specially asked you to wait for me here?" The general's face darkened, and a dignified aura was released. In his heart, he was also a little surprised. Normally, ordinary people would be scared out of their wits when they saw him. This young girl actually dared to look him in the eye and even guessed his purpose here. No wonder. Why would General Zhang Wang pay so much attention to this girl and be so vigilant? Is this the attitude of General Battle King when he invites guests into his residence? Yi Ching Luo sneered when she sensed the general's threatening aura. That general was stunned as he became more and more curious and concerned about Yi Ching Luo's identity. "Miss, please enter." Yi Ching Luo's pink lips curled upwards, with a calm and unperturbed look. His left hand was held by Kitty Lee. His right hand was hooked around Jun Qingwu's wrist. Hugging on both sides, he followed behind that general. Chapter 2443. Yi Ching Luo tilted her head and shrugged her shoulders. "Oh, then there's nothing to talk about." The general looked at the two beautiful ladies. One was lovely and charming while the other was cold and aloof. He thought that these two ladies wouldn't be able to cause any trouble. If he were to let Miss Yi Luo leave just like that, the War King General would definitely blame him. Hence, the general stretched out his hand and made a pleased gesture. "Three ladies, please." Yi Ching Luo raised her brows and walked past the general directly into the Battle King's residence. The general stared at the trio's back as his eyes sunk slightly. Behind him, the commoners were pointing at Yi Ching Luo and the others' backs. They were all guessing. What was the background of this famous red-robed young lady in Qingyue City? What was her relationship with the Battle King's residence? Why was it that even the people sent by the royal family to inquire about what happened were stopped outside the Battle King's residence? But that young lady was welcomed into the Battle King's residence. The speed at which the commoners in Qingyue City spread gossip was rather fast. It was just the time for a stick of incense to burn. This matter had already spread like wildfire in Qingyue City. More and more commoners gathered at the Battle King's residence to watch the show. Inside the Battle King's residence, the general brought Yi Ching Luo and the other two to the meeting hall of the Battle King's residence. The door of the meeting hall was wide open. There was a strong smell of blood coming from inside the room. Yi Ching Luo took a look and saw the black-robed men's corpses lying on the ground, dripping with blood. The Battle King's expression was gloomy, as if he was shrouded in a layer of dark clouds. He sat on a main seat and pointed at the corpses on the ground while berating the soldier standing beside him. The soldier bowed his body and kept saying something, but this angered the Battle King even more. The Battle King roared as he raised his palm and sent that soldier flying. A lump of something flew towards him. Yi Ching Luo frowned slightly as she pulled the two people beside her to avoid it. The soldier fell heavily to the ground and rolled a few times. The Battle King also saw Yi Ching Luo standing at the door. His malicious eyes suddenly turned sinister as he slammed the table hard and stood up. "Yi Luo, you're finally here." Yi Ching Luo hugged on both sides as she leisurely walked into the meeting hall. Her long and narrow eyes were slightly narrowed. His tone was extremely casual. "If I didn't come, wouldn't General Zhang Wang blame all the soldiers under him?" She spoke. He had already walked to the wooden chairs on both sides of the meeting hall. The three of them sat down on their own. Yi Ching Luo propped her chin as she blinked her eyes at Battle King. No matter what, these soldiers are all brothers who had followed General Battle King for so many years. General Battle King had merely met with some unsatisfactory matters, so there's no need to vent all your anger on your own brothers. Furthermore, you're so ruthless, as if you don't care about the lives of your brothers. General War King, aren't you afraid of disappointing your brothers? Yi Ching Luo's voice was very soft. His tone was nonchalant. It was as if he had said it casually, but it made Battle King's face turn black completely. Young lady, are you trying to sow discord between this general and the soldiers? Stating the truth, in General Battle King's eyes, is it sowing discord? Yi Ching Luo sneered. If General Battle King feels that it's sowing discord, then so be it. Looking at Yi Ching Luo's indifferent expression, Battle King was so angry that his chest was heaving up and down violently. Chapter 2444. Yi Ching Luo's long and narrow eyes curled upwards. Battle King is ridiculous, do you think? You have the cheek to question me? These are my soldiers. They're my brothers who have risked their lives for me. Why can't I question you? Battle King clenched his fists tightly as the veins on his forehead popped out. Yi Ching Luo burst out laughing with a puff. She looked sideways at Kitty Lee and smiled faintly. Kitty. Kitty Lee's watery eyes lit up as she turned her head and looked at Battle King. She had a sweet smile on her face, and her eyes were filled with excitement and were extremely bright. She suddenly let out a shrill cry. Her body suddenly turned into a shadow as she stretched out her hands and scratched towards Battle King's face. Presumptuous? Battle King didn't expect that Yi Ching Luo dared to make a move on him in front of so many of his subordinates in his territory. Immediately, anger welled up in his heart, and he counterattacked with a backhand. But just as Kitty Lee's claws were about to scratch Battle King's face, just as Battle King's counterattack was about to land on Kitty Lee, Battle King's body suddenly staggered a step forward. His counterattack hit nothing but air. He only saw a black shadow passing by in front of him. He took a closer look, not knowing when Kitty Lee had already returned to Yi Ching Luo's side as she sat obediently, as though nothing had happened earlier at all. This was a blatant humiliation. Battle King's face was gloomy and terrifying. He was actually played by a little girl. Miss Yi Luo, what do you mean by this? Battle King's eyes were cold as he asked angrily, with murderous intent. Yi Ching Luo leaned lazily against the chair as her lips curled up slightly, as she gave a light smile. According to General Battle King's habits, shouldn't General Battle King be sitting there obediently, waiting for the enemy to kill you, before letting your trusted aide take revenge for you? This sentence was obviously ridiculing Battle King. The War King's expression immediately darkened. Miss Yi Luo, are you trying to push the blame for the deaths of my brothers onto me? Yi Ching Luo covered her mouth as she gave a low laugh. Her smile was extremely flirtatious. Am I wrong? When General Zhan Wang sent your brothers to kill me, you should have thought of the consequences. Come to think of it, the deaths of your brothers were caused by you, the general. You're talking nonsense. The War King slammed the table and said righteously, how could I send my soldiers to kill you? You're just a little girl. Do you think you're worthy of me sending my soldiers to kill you? No one will believe such words, even if you say it out. The War King made up his mind. Anyway, Yi Ching Luo had no evidence to accuse him of trying to assassinate her. No matter who it was, they wouldn't believe it. He was the dignified Northern Wave Continent's War King General. He would send his trusted aide to kill a young girl. Moreover, this young lady had a criminal record. He had targeted Yuan Kuang and poisoned him. He could definitely insist that this little girl was a spy sent by another continent to deliberately target the Warlord Mansion. She wanted to weaken the Warlord Mansion's strength so that it would be easier for her to invade the Northern Wave Continent. When this speculation spread, whether it was true or false, this young lady would not be able to walk out of the Northern Wave Continent alive. When the War King thought of this, his eyes flashed a sharp and sinister cold light. Just as he was about to open his mouth to counter Yi Ching Luo, the housekeeper's voice suddenly came from the door. General, the Southern Wave Continent's Gufeng Sect's young matriarch requests an audience. I won't see you. Chapter 2445. As soon as he finished speaking, the warlord's voice paused. He straightened his face and walked towards the housekeeper. Who did you just say? The housekeeper was about to go back to report when he heard Battle King's question and turned around respectfully. Southern Continent's Gu Feng, sex young matriarch. Gu Feng's sex young matriarch? Battle King frowned slightly. Out of the corner of his eyes, he glanced at the three women sitting in the hall with a hesitant expression. As for Gu Feng's sex young matriarch, he had long wanted to rope her in. After all, Gu Feng's sect was the real #1 sect in Southern Continent. No matter if it was the royal family or other families, no one could restrain Gu Feng's sect. Unlike West Continent, where Three Springs sect was managed by Yi Tianquan, they were gradually declining, and no matter which large family clan it was, they could casually step on them. Unlike Northern Continent, although Qin Yu's sect status was outstanding, but it was still mutually restraining with the royal family and the Miao Gu family. So, if he could get to know Gu Feng's sex young matriarch, to his position in the Northern Wave Continent, there were only advantages and no disadvantages. But helplessly, Southern Continent and Northern Continent were in opposite directions and were very far apart. He had no chance to interact with Gu Feng's sex young matriarch. Now, Gu Feng's sex young matriarch had personally paid a visit. He pretended not to see her. There might not be such a chance in the future. Thinking of this, Battle King finally said, "Quick, invite Gu Feng, sex young matriarch in." The housekeeper nodded and retreated. Battle King flicked his sleeves and returned to the meeting hall with a cold smile. "Count yourself lucky. I have a distinguished guest visiting today, so I won't haggle with you." After that, he glanced at the manservant at the side. "Send the three ladies out from the back door." The manservant stepped forward and was about to leave with Yi Qing Luo and the others. Yi Qing Luo sat lazily on the chair, not moving at all. "Tisk, General Battle King is really awe-inspiring. Do you think I'm someone whom you can summon at your beck and call? Yi Luo, don't try to fool around. You should feel lucky that I am willing to let you go." Battle King's face sunk as he threatened. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laughed. "I'm afraid General Battle King still hasn't figured out the situation. What do you think is the reason why I walked into your Battle King's residence today?" The War King's expression changed. Thinking that the Gu Feng sex young sect master was about to arrive, he clenched his teeth and said angrily, "I don't have the time to talk nonsense with you here. Men, send them out." Yi Qing Luo scoffed lightly, looking at the servant who was rushing over and trying to take them away by force. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes. An invisible, profound energy sent those people flying out. Battle Monarch's sword-like brows turned sinister as his palms swiftly pressed down on Yi Qing Luo's face. Yi Qing Luo, however, stood up leisurely. Her red clothes fluttered even though there was no wind. There was a trace of bloodthirsty coldness on her beautiful face. Battle King's body inexplicably stiffened. Under Yi Qing Luo's gaze, he was suppressed to the point that he was unable to move. Yi Qing Luo's pink lips curled up as she enunciated each word clearly. "Now, it's not whether General Battle King wants to find trouble with me or not, but I want to seek justice for myself." Her brows arched upwards. It was both enchanting and cold. "I will not let the matter of General Battle King sending soldiers to kill me go. If General Battle King is unable to give me a satisfactory answer, I will put this debt on General Battle King's head." Chapter 2446. Battle King felt his heart tightening. It was as if an ice-cold hand had ruthlessly strangled his heart. That coldness, it made it difficult for him to even breathe. "General Battle King, since you have the guts to send your men to hunt me down, then you should be prepared to bear the consequences." Yi Qing Luo was fearless in the face of Battle King's gloomy expression. Battle King was furious. He knew that this slut was the bane of the Yuan family. Nothing good would come out of meeting her. She had to create trouble when the young matriarch of the Gu Feng sect came to visit. Thinking that the young sect master of the Wind Valley sect was about to reach the conference hall, the War King roared in exasperation. "I've said it before, these soldiers are soldiers who guard the Northern Wave Continent. They are not assassins. Moreover, you are just a young lass. Do you think it's worth it for me to send my men to hunt you down? If you continue to pester me, don't blame me for bringing this matter to the royal family. to the Qinghua sect. Let's see how you can continue to survive in the northern continent. Oh, Yi Qing Luo dragged out the last syllable and nodded with a smile. Then do it. If I can't survive in the northern continent, consider it my loss. You. Seeing Yi Qing Luo's stubborn look, Battle King was so angry that his teeth itched. He was a dignified General Battle King. How could he make a fuss over such a small matter? This slut didn't want face. He still wanted face. What's more, this slut dared to be so arrogant, insisting that he was the one who sent those soldiers to hunt her down. Who knew if she had any evidence in her hands? If it went to the royal family? If it went to the Qinghua sect? It was a small matter to lose face. If the news that he had sent his trusted men to hunt down a 15-year-old girl was spread out, he would really have no face to continue living in the northern continent. At this moment, a gentle voice suddenly came from behind. General Battle King, did I disturb you by visiting so suddenly? Hearing this voice, Battle King's body stiffened. Little by little, his face, which had been distorted by rage, returned to normal. He turned his head and saw a gentle and elegant man in a bamboo-colored robe greeting him politely. The War King immediately grinned and quickly walked over. The Wind Valley sect's young sect master's arrival brings light to our humble dwelling. How could it possibly disturb me? Come, this way, please. I've already ordered the servants to brew the best tea in the hall. As he spoke, he held the man's arm and walked in another direction. However, Gu Jingyu moved slightly and shook off Warlord's hand. He looked in the direction of the conference hall and said, "Doesn't General Warlord have a guest? You don't have to go to the lobby. Let's just stay here. You can also meet new friends along the way." As Gu Jingyu spoke, he had already walked into the conference hall. His gaze immediately fell onto Yi Qing Luo, a pair of eyes so gentle that it seemed as if water could be squeezed out of them. At this moment, they glowed faintly. When Yi Qing Luo saw Gu Jingyu, her slender brows creased slightly. He is the young sect master of the Wind Valley sect. His every move represents the Wind Valley sect. He came to the Battle King's residence. Didn't that represent that the Wind Valley sect took the initiative to interact with the Battle King's residence? Didn't Gu Jingyu think of this? No, wrong. Gu Jingyu was so smart. How could he not think of this? Could it be? Gu Jingyu had heard that she was invited to the Battle King's residence by the general of the Battle King's residence. So he specially came over? Chapter 2447. Young Matriarch Gu. Battle King immediately followed up. When his gaze swept towards Yi Qing Luo, there was an obvious warning, as though he was threatening her not to spoil his relationship with Gu Jingyu. Yi Qing Luo tilted her head as she leaned lazily against the chair without any intention to stand up to greet Gu Jingyu. She was that lazy as she looked at Battle King with a faint smile. It made Battle King's scalp go numb. Under Gu Jingyu's coercion, Battle King could only suppress his fear and disgust towards Yi Qing Luo as he spoke out. "Young Matriarch Gu, these ladies are unpresentable. It's better to follow me to the main hall. If young Matriarch Gu likes them, I will arrange a more beautiful lady for young Matriarch Gu." "Shut up." Gu Jingyu's face sunk as he frowned. "What kind of person does Battle King think I am?" Gu Jingyu looked at Yi Qing Luo in panic, as though he was blaming Battle King for describing him as a silk pants in front of the lady he admired. Battle King felt embarrassed when he was berated. He laughed awkwardly as his heart was filled with disdain. Young Matriarch Gu stopped moving when he saw those young and beautiful ladies, especially when he looked at that slut's gaze. It was a blatant covetous look. Wasn't he just a silk pants who liked beauties? But he still pretended to be serious. But Battle King was just complaining in his heart. On the surface, he still had to put on a guilty expression. "Yes, I was wrong. How could those ordinary ladies be worthy of such a young and promising man like young Matriarch Gu?" Gu Jingyu's brows knitted even tighter. This General Battle King, must he think of him as a silk pants who was addicted to beauties? Could it be that he really looked like that kind of Casanova? Was this the reason why Yi Luo rejected him? Thinking of Yi Luo mentioning that he had a fiancée, Gu Jingyu's heart became extremely bitter. His thin lips pursed slightly as he didn't make any other explanation for his image. But he pretended to look at Yi Qing Luo and the other two in doubt and asked doubtfully, "General Battle King, these three ladies don't look like they are from the Battle King's residence, and these—" He looked at the bloody corpses on the ground and frowned. "It's not good to let the girls see this. Young Master Gu is right." The manservant behind John Wang gave him a look. The servant immediately trotted out. Soon, he brought a few strong bodyguards with him. A few guards were about to carry the corpses out. Yi Qing Luo, who hadn't spoken for a long time, raised her eyes and spoke out lazily, "Stop." His clear voice was as cold as ice, cold to the bone. Those guards actually didn't dare to move for a moment. The War King's face darkened. "Take him away." The guards immediately broke out in cold sweat. The pressure from Yi Qing Luo. The pressure from the War Monarch. The guard felt his heart clench. "Who exactly is your master?" "I said, take him away." The War King's expression immediately became even more gloomy. In front of young sect Master Gu, even his subordinates did not give him any face. Where was the dignity of the Battle King? That guard realized that he was in the wrong and hurriedly knelt down on the ground. "Your subordinate will carry them away now." Saying that, one by one hurriedly bent down to carry those corpses. Chapter 2448. Yi Luo, you shut up for this general. Battle King's expression turned gloomy as he bellowed furiously to stop Yi Qing Luo from speaking. Immediately, he turned towards Gu Jingyu's direction and said, "Young sect Master Gu, this is a misunderstanding. Don't look at this young lady. She looks so weak, but her heart is very vicious." As he wiped the cold sweat off his forehead, he tried his best to explain, "This lady poisoned my son, causing him to lose his right to be a father. She has also ended the bloodline of the Yuan clan." "What? She poisoned my son, causing him to lose the right to be a father. Later she poisoned the eldest young miss of the Miao Gu family. And now she killed my brothers who had gone through life and death with me, and even hung my brothers' corpses at the main entrance of Battle King's residence." Humiliating Battle King's residence. The more he spoke, the more indignant Battle King's tone became. But because of Gu Jingyu's presence, he suppressed the anger in his chest. He shut his eyes fiercely as he put on a sorrowful expression. "She killed my brothers and tried in vain to make a fuss, insisting that it was me, and sent my men to pursue her." "Oh." Gu Jingyu listened quietly and immediately raised his gentle eyes as he gave Yi Qing Luo a meaningful look. Yesterday, when Yi Qing Luo was being pursued, he was about to head over to the Bu family village to take in everything. He naturally had a decision in his heart. But what made Gu Jingyu shocked and astonished was Yi Luo actually hung those soldiers' corpses directly at the main entrance of Battle King's residence. This obviously meant that he had specially investigated Battle King's residence. He knew that Battle King's residence had always been confident and wouldn't send anyone to guard at night. So he intentionally did such a thing. Once the night watchman discovered the corpses at the main entrance of Battle King's residence, basically, the entire Qinghua city would know about it. Then he heard Battle King saying that Yi Luo had poisoned the Yuan family's bloodline. Gu Jingyu couldn't help but pondered in his heart. "Miss Yi, what enmity did she have with Battle King's residence?" "Young sect Master Gu, it's rare for you to visit me personally at Battle King's residence. Don't let this vicious woman affect your mood." Battle King saw that Gu Jingyu wasn't acting like what he had imagined, standing on his side with righteous indignation, accusing Yi Qing Luo's viciousness, so he immediately changed the topic. Gu Jingyu's eyes flickered and his smile became even gentler. "General War King, this Lady Yi is so beautiful. She doesn't look like a vicious woman. There must be some misunderstanding." The War Monarch's pupils contracted. Just because she was beautiful, she didn't seem like a bad person? This young sect Master Gu was an idiot who only knew how to look at appearances? Without waiting for War King to reply, Gu Jingyu had already put on an impartial and strict expression as he walked to the main seat in the hall and sat down. "Coincidentally, I encountered this matter today. Let me resolve the misunderstanding for you too." This action could be said to be arrogant. The War Monarch was stunned. Why was this South Billow Continent's young sect master completely different from the one in the investigation. What happened to the gentle young master? What happened to being refined and courteous? How'd he end up here? As the host, he hadn't even taken a seat yet. He hadn't even had the chance to exchange pleasantries. Young sect master Gu went to the main seat alone. He totally didn't put him, the war monarch, in his eyes. But Battle King couldn't say this layer of meaning out loud. After all, young sect master Gu's actions were inappropriate, but his words and attitude were very gentle and courteous. Chapter 2449. Thinking of this, even if Battle King was unhappy, he had to suppress it. He couldn't create friction with the young matriarch of the southern continent just because of the main seat. Misty, can you tell me, why are you so sure that General Battle King would hunt you down? Gu Jingyu sat firmly on the main seat, his thin lips raised slightly as he asked Yi Qing Luo with a gentle smile. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. Her long and narrow eyes narrowed slightly. Gu Jingyu deliberately pretended not to know her. Was he trying to help her? But this was indeed a good idea. Battle King wanted to befriend Gu Jingyu. In front of Gu Jingyu, Battle King had to restrain his arrogance. When Battle King heard Gu Jingyu's question, he quickly walked to the lower seat next to Gu Jingyu and sat down while replying. What young matriarch Gu said is right. I am the Northern Continent's General Battle King. If I want a little lass from another continent with no background to die, it's just a matter of moving my fingers. Why would I send my own brothers to hunt her down? If General Battle King didn't send these soldiers to hunt little Luo, how can you be so sure that these soldiers were killed by little Luo? The cold, elegant lady who had been silent coldly opened her mouth. Jun Xingwu narrowed her cold eyes. Her voice was bone-chilling. Our little Luo has no enmity with the Battle King's mansion. Little Luo's brain must have been kicked by a donkey. Why would she be so silly to kill your soldiers? You. Battle King didn't know how to refute Jun Qingwu's questioning. His eyes looked around in panic and finally looked at Gu Jingyu, as if hoping that Gu Jingyu could speak up for him. Kitty Lee cupped her chin with both hands, blinking her big, watery eyes. Sister Wu is right. If you didn't send people to kill Sister, how would Sister possibly kill those soldiers? You said you have no motive to hunt Sister down. Does Sister have the motive to kill those soldiers? As she said this, Kitty Lee pouted and snorted heavily. Even though we are little girls who are ignorant of the ways of the world, we are not fools. We three sisters came to the Northern Wave Continent, and we have no relatives or friends. And now it's the sect master's birthday celebration? We'd have to be crazy to cause trouble for your warlord's mansion. When Gu Jingyu heard this, he carefully pondered for a while. Then he rubbed his chin and turned his head to look at Warlord seriously. That makes sense. That gaze seemed to be saying, it's your turn. A gloomy look flashed across the War King's eyes, just as he was about to speak. However, he heard a sweet voice say, Kitty, you're wrong. General Warlord naturally has a motive to hunt me down. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled up into a lazy smile. Her long and narrow eyes calmly met Battle King's gaze. The war monarch gritted his teeth in anger. You're talking nonsense. General Battle King, didn't you say that I poisoned the young master and caused your Yuan family to have no descendants? Just because of this, you have enough motivation to hunt me down. Yi Qing Luo said smilingly, as though the person who was being pursued wasn't her at all. Battle King's face instantly turned pale. Gu Jingyu's eyes widened slightly, as though he believed in Yi Qing Luo's words. The gaze which he shot towards Battle King was added with a sliver of sharpness. General Battle King, what these three young ladies said is very reasonable. If General Battle King is unable to refute or prove that you have no intention to pursue after that Missy, then I can only choose to believe these three young ladies. Chapter 2450. Yi Qing Luo burst out laughing. She leaned lazily on the tea table and smiled leisurely. Unfortunately, General Battle King can't prove that you don't want to avenge Little Duke, but I happen to have evidence to prove that it is you, General Battle King, who sent your trusted aide to hunt me down. When she said the last sentence, Yi Qing Luo suddenly sat up straight, a pair of lazy and hazy eyes. At this moment, it shot out a piercingly cold ray. Her 5 fingers moved. A token was thrown to the feet of Battle King. That token was made of metal. It fell on the ground and made an extremely crisp sound. On the token, there was an extremely obvious battle word reflected in everyone's eyes. Battle King was shocked and immediately bent over to pick up the token. A single hand was even faster than him. Gu Jingyu held the token in his hand. His fingertips gently stroked the word battle. He looked at the War King, and his thin lips curled into a cold sneer. General War King, how do you explain this? Why is this token that belongs to you, the General War King, and is used to dispatch soldiers, in Miss Ye's hands? Obviously, Gu Jingyu was completely on Yi Qing Luo's side. Moreover, Gu Jingyu was also extremely disdainful of his thick skin that refused to admit. Battle King was clear. He wanted to make friends with Gu Fengsek's young matriarch. It was already impossible. Battle King's face was pale. His whole body was tense and stiff. He stared unblinkingly at the token in Gu Jingyu's hand. His breathing became heavy bit by bit. After a long while, his face was gloomy. His whole body was filled with a daunting cold air. Just as he was about to break the pot and admit this matter, outside the door, there was suddenly a heavy sound of footsteps, accompanied by a young man's sloppy voice. "It is this Duke who sent these soldiers to hunt you down. What's the matter? Do you have any opinion?" Shortly after, at the entrance of the hall, a rotund young man walked in, surrounded by numerous servants and maids. The moment Yuan Kuang walked into the meeting hall, a pair of narrow eyes fixed on Yi Qing Luo fiercely. His eyes were filled with strong, murderous intent. It was like a raging storm, surging wave after wave. Kuang-er, when the War King saw his son, he quickly walked over and said, "What are you doing here? The B*TCH who ruined our Yuan family is here. How can I not come?" Yuan Kuang's tone was evil, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. The War King knitted his brows tightly. Yuan Kuang rubbed his round tummy and turned his head to look at Yi Qing Luo as he gave a sinister smile. "Little beauty, this duke will bear the consequences of my own actions." This duke had stolen father's token and falsely passed on father's orders to make those soldiers chase after you. All these were planned by this duke. This prince wants your life. At this moment, Yuan Kuang was looking at Yi Qing Luo's exquisite face, and that arrogant temperament that once made his heart itch unbearably. Now, it had all turned into deep hatred. He hated this slut for making him lose the right to be a father. He was the only descendant of the Yuan family, the only son of the Battle King. But because of this slut, destroyed everything he had. Not to mention that he was the only son of the Battle King. In future, he would be able to inherit the Battle King's position. If the news of him not having the ability to conceive a descendant was spread to the collateral relatives of the Yuan family, all the glory they had now would be destroyed. Everything in the Battle King's residence would be destroyed.